Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of The Happiness Show every Sunday evening with the Happiness Collective. My name is Garima, and I am the community manager at the Happiness Collective. The Happiness Show is a live streamed evening segment presented to you by the Happiness Collective, where we have events and programming featuring meditations, conversations, poetry, and much more. Our first segment is Musings and Meditation with Sharad Jagtiani. We're just waiting for him to join.
Hi,
Hi, Sharad. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm good. Just introducing ourselves to this audience. For those who are watching the episode for the first time, Sharad is an Access Bars practitioner, life coach, and healed and trained in various modalities. He is also an actor and a singer. On the Happiness Show, Sharad and myself get together and we chat about life and meditation. This is our third segment now. The first time we talked about how to stay positive. The second time we talked about anxiety. And today we're talking about vibration. So Sharad and I thought that this was an important topic to talk about because the pandemic has really exacerbated a lot of negative energy around us. So we thought that it would be useful for our audience to talk about what positive vibrations are and how we can surround ourselves with the right people to raise our own vibration. So Sharad, tell us about the concept of vibration. What does that mean?
So, Garima, not that I'm an expert on this, but I've been reading and I've been, just implementing a few things. But I think vibration is the energetic quality of a person. Okay. Also of a place. When you go to a place and you see that it's really, sometimes you go to a place and you just feel very good out there. The kind of people you meet and everyone's smiling and there's the music that's playing. So you say, hey, that place had a nice vibe.
Yeah.
And, so that is the energetic quality of that place or the person. We're talking about people here. And it comes from the way that person is feeling. Okay. And I want to give you an example because I was just thinking about how to explain this very simply. I had gone to a friend's birthday and I just love meeting people, and I go with a lot of excitement when I go to a party. And of course, the people, they were very nice and very sweet and very simple. And I guess they were not very, they weren't mixing with each other. So my friend just, as soon as I entered, he said, can you just do something here? And so I went to everyone. I said, hi, I'm Sharad. And, what do you do? And, come, meet everyone. Then I got them to play a game. So I guess in that party, I was at a higher vibration because I was flowing with love. I was confident. I was fun. I was joyful. And so that quality is something that we can work on every day, every moment. And the effect that being in a higher vibration that we have on others is also way greater than if you are in a lower vibration.
Fascinating. So when is someone in a lower vibration?
Yeah, so when you are feeling low or not so enthused, when you're feeling, so there are certain emotions attached to lower vibration, like guilt and sadness and anger and shame and blame. So these are some of the fear. These are some of the emotions attached to lower vibration. And when you are feeling any of that, little bit is okay. I mean, sometimes we feel like guilty about something or whatever, and then we jump back into, hey, it's okay, And if you're feeling, joy or love, enlightenment and peace, so then you're in a higher vibration.
Fascinating. So, and you said that when one is in a higher vibration with all of these positive emotions, that affects the people around you as well. How does that happen?
So if I tell you something with love, or if I tell you with anger, what is likely to work better? I think love will work better. I can be firm. I don't need to be, love doesn't mean that, everybody just walks all over you. But it means that you have sometimes you have that strict love also, so where you want the other person to do well, right? The well-being of that person is very important. So so love doesn't mean that everything's okay and you're not a doormat. So that works better than say I shout at someone and say, "Yeah, tum log kya karte ho aise?" But if I say, "Hey guys, can you do this? Yeah, I'd like you to do this," So all these emotions are, they have a greater influence than all the lower emotions. And the second thing and most important thing is that how do I feel with those lower emotions is not so great. No? So I want to be happy, right? Eventually I want to be happy. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, because being in a state of higher vibration or lower vibration, like you don't, it's really a matter of understanding how you yourself are feeling, right? If you feel good around a place, and if you feel excited, and if you feel joyful and optimistic, then you're probably in a place with higher vibration or around someone with a higher vibration. And if you're feeling all of the negative emotions that you just mentioned, like guilt or shame or even fatigue, then we're probably operating in a lower vibration. That's super interesting. How do you think the pandemic has affected people's vibrations around you from your personal experience? Because I can already think of a few examples myself.
I think I go low very, very quick because of the pandemic. I think
Mm-hmm.
just today also, I was talking to someone and I said, yeah, I'm feeling very trapped, you know.
Mm.
And then I also have had anger because I felt that the pandemic could have been handled better, not only like by everybody, not just say the authorities, but also the people. So I was like, yeah, why am I stuck because of other people being like this and being like that? So then I, in fact, spoke to a friend and she said that, is there something you can do about it? Because I was getting, this is a blame thing. No, I was in a blame is a lower vibration. So then she said, what can you do? So accept it and then see what else you can do. So I was like, okay. So I accepted. Then I did a bit of meditation. Actually, I attended someone's meditation today this morning, and then I felt really relaxed after that. And then I started making some reels and all. So yeah, so I mean, you just have to recognize when you're going low and what is happening, and then you have to do certain activities so that you can get out of that emotion. So every emotion, I think you can either work on the lower vibrations by doing an activity, or you can do some activities which are relating to the higher vibrations, or you can do both.
Absolutely. So activities that raise your higher vibration, and also activities that help you deal with your lower vibrations, right?
Yeah.
Because those emotions are very natural and present during the pandemic. They are in life otherwise also, I feel like, but with the pandemic, it's particularly bad. What do you do about the fact that, like, people genuinely are struggling with lower vibrations and energies and negative emotions, um, and the magnitude of these emotions is so much, like having friends or families succumb to COVID, looking at the social political situation outside. So how can we help each other in this time? Because everyone has this lower vibration, right? And like higher vibration, lower vibration also transmits between people. So if you're continuously surrounded by people who are angry or blaming everyone and everything around them, or just sad, how can you help them? How can you help yourself?
Yeah, so I think that you can help yourself first because you can help others when your kind of jug is full. But having said that, many times we reach out for help where we know that this person can help me right now. But in general, I try to surround myself with people who want to change. It's not having a lower vibration is not a problem, but being stuck in it is a problem. So because eventually when you are angry and you have fear and you have blame, shame, regret, it's going to start affecting your body also, not only the body, the mind also. So eventually it's going to create a lot of trouble for the person who's doing all that, right? And it's a known fact that if you're in a happier state, your immunity is better, you can fight illnesses better, you don't fall so sick when you're happier, right? So all the more because the pandemic is going on, so all the more we have to make sure that we are in a higher vibration.
That's so important.
In fact, so we think the pandemic is going on, so when once it gets over I'll be happy, but why not figure out what true happiness is right now?
Absolutely. And I think we forget that even before the pandemic, like it's not like we weren't struggling with lower vibrations or negative emotions, right? Like life is painful, pandemic or not.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of hidden emotions or stuff that we weren't dealing with before has also come up because of the pandemic. You
Definitely.
have to face it now.
Definitely, because we don't have all of these distractions of being able to go out all the time
Yeah.
or into work. But I love this distinction that you made, that there's nothing wrong with being in a lower vibration. The problem is being stuck in it, right? So, what do you do if you find yourself surrounded with people stuck in lower vibrations and they refuse to do anything about it, or they don't know what to do about it? They're themselves helpless and angry. What would you do as a person?
So you'll have if you're in a WhatsApp group with school or college friends, you'll have these one or two people who will you'll tell them, I don't want to discuss politics, and everybody will tell them that no politics, or no, these topics let's not discuss, but they'll continuously keep discussing it. So now some people won't get affected, some people can ignore it, some people get affected. So it's not a standardized thing, but what I generally do is, if I feel that a group is very, very there's no solution there, right? Like, think of a solution or share facts, because opinions everyone has about everything. But I would rather, if I'm getting facts from somewhere, or I'm getting a solution from somewhere, I would prefer that. So if I feel a group is not doing either of the two, and it's just giving my opinion, and then they're trying to bulldoze their opinion on each other, and there's no discussion happening, then I generally tend to exit those groups. Because and then I don't care what people say. I mean, there are people who say ki are tu aisa hai waisa hai, you can't handle things. I don't care, because I want to maintain my high vibration. I don't care about judgments of people.
Why do you think people do that? I mean, do you think it's because people need a space to vent or to let out their negative emotions?
No, I think they just want to they just have this intense desire to have people to agree with them. It's a very tiring process. You want everyone to agree with you. That will never happen.
Interesting. Yeah, I think because everyone is struggling with negative emotions in these times, but I think some people find a way to deal with it very productively, and others are not able to. So, you talking about exiting this group, for example, that can be very difficult for some people, because these WhatsApp groups can be from school or college or even family groups, and there is this stigma that you can't just leave a group like that. What do you think about that?
I don't live my life with stigmas. Either I live my life, or I worry about what other people think of me. And okay, I mean, if you don't want to be rude and stuff, you can always tell them that, hey, I'm taking a break from groups for now, and I'll join back when I'm feeling a little when I'll join back. So you don't have to be rude and all. You can just explain to them that right now I'll be back. So I don't think we have to worry so much about people, what they think about us, because out of that group, those few close friends that you have in that group, you can be in touch with them. You can start your own group. Why do you have to be in touch with everybody from your school and everybody from your college? I don't even remember half the people. So today, I need to know, why am I doing something? I don't do things just like that. I need to know, why am I in this group? What am I getting from it? And I'm not making it sound like a transactional thing. It could be just some groups, they share very funny things, and some groups share very motivational things, and some groups give you a lot of information. Like we have a Lokhandwala group. They're amazing. They'll tell you where the vaccines are available, and if there's a carpenter required, or a electrician required, or something's happening, they just inform each other. So people have opinions there also, but the group is for a purpose. And one must understand, like I tell all the WhatsApp admins and all the groups, I said, why don't you define what your group is for?
Very important. Yeah. No, definitely. And this is reminding me of a thing that I've been reading recently. I've been reading a lot about the concept of setting boundaries.
Yeah.
So you're trained as a life coach. What does that mean?
So I think boundaries is just having a conversation with people about what they can do and what they can't do. So it's as simple as that. And when they can do it, it's not even like, what, and it's also when, because Like I'm not really a morning person in that sense. I can't talk to people too much in the morning because morning I'm doing my own routine. So I chatted with my mom, because mom, you know how moms are, they'll just come to your room and they'll be like, kya khaoge,
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
and my when I'm doing self hypnosis, I cannot be disturbed at all, So now I have to explain to my mother that, in this process, this 20-25 minutes is somewhere I can't have. So I even asked my cook that, pressure cooker ki seeti bajegi ki nahi bajegi kya? So I can work around that time. But then once I'm doing the 20 minutes, then I tell both of them that, yeah, please don't disturb me right now. So it's a boundary, right? It's done respectfully. I'm not throwing people out of my room. Like it's done like, okay, this time to this time, I am doing this. Similarly with clients, what happens when you work with as a life coach? Many times people are traumatized. Okay, but I may be doing something else at that. Like we are chatting right now, so I obviously can't take a call right now. So they feel bad, and then you have to explain to them. But sometimes you have to also say, like sometimes they're not willing to listen. So you have to just tell them that I'm sorry. Please call me at 7 o'clock or call me at 8 o'clock. So I think boundaries are something that is more you respect your own self, and you explain to the other person that this is what I can offer, this is what I can't offer, and this is when I can offer that.
No, definitely. I think that sets the expectations really, really well. And then people don't end up getting hurt. And it happens in the smallest of things. I messaged someone to have a conversation with them for a job that I do. And I said, "Are you free tomorrow to talk?" And she said, "Yes, I'm free at 10 a.m." But then she also mentioned, "Please message me before calling." So and I was like, "Yes, of course." And I did that. And then we had a very respectful conversation because I did message her. Otherwise people just like call you whenever and wherever. So those boundaries can be as simple as letting someone know that I'm not going to be available for a call if you don't message me first, right? Or
Like
telling
some
them,
friends, I think some friends you kind of can just call, right? So, I mean, I don't think,
"Oh, this was for a professional like call, not..."
Some people you have to set boundaries where where you feel that you need some fine tuning. Some people, or professionally or even personally, one needs to set those boundaries, because otherwise what happens, they'll take you down to a lower vibration when you're just working on yourself to be in a higher vibration. Like
Definitely.
I have a client who's sharing with me problems that a doctor can solve, right? And before I know it, she's already told me so much about her situation. I'm a life coach. I'm not a doctor, but so I had to tell her that anything that you're sharing with me, which a doctor needs to look at, please don't share that with me, because I don't know what to do with it. If you want a doctor, I can give you a doctor. If you want emotional, some kind of, you want to chat about something like that, but people sometimes maybe they're panicking or there's I don't know what, so they just don't understand, maybe. And once in a way, it's okay, but I think otherwise we'll end up being just sucked into that whole the
Definitely. And I
drama
think,
and the trauma.
yeah, I think it's the hardest with friends or with family to set those boundaries. So, and it can be difficult because it can very easily be read as you being rude or
Arrogant.
you being or arrogant, right? Like especially in Indian culture, like if I tell my mother, I'm setting my boundaries, she will say, "Ki, what is this nonsense?" Right? My mother doesn't say that. My mother is lovely, "Mama, I love you," because she's watching on the YouTube live. But I've heard this problem with a lot of my friends. They try to set boundaries with parents. The concept doesn't exist in our culture, right? Like
Yeah.
I've only recently found out about this. So how have
Rude is a
you
very
seen people
rude is a
navigate it?
favorite word, and I get that a lot. If you read, if you look at somebody's message on Instagram, you don't even know them, and if you don't reply immediately, they call you rude. So I always tell them that, can I see the contract? I'd like to see the contract. Where is it written that I have to reply to you immediately? But you read the message. I say, yeah, but um, I could be brushing my teeth while reading your message,
Exactly.
or whatever. That's not their business. Like I can reply whenever I want. There's no contract that when I've read a message, I have to reply. So that's why boundaries are very important. And again, sometimes we get triggered, right? So then we have to meditate and we have to watch our breath, and because there are all kinds of people. So it's more to do with me doing this for myself, and doing these daily activities, like if we meditate or if we express gratitude, that immediately gets us out of, all the anger maybe towards people, or so because we are looking at and we're complaining and we're blaming, right? So when you do gratitude, it kind of gets you out of that complaining and blaming. So it directly puts you into a higher vibration. Similarly, forgiveness. When you forgive, say it's okay. There must be a reason why this person was in my life, and let me learn from that and let me move ahead. So again, you get out of that, that guilt and that blame and anger, and then you move to a higher vibration where you can do things that you really want to do.
Mm, definitely. I think gratitude, things like gratitude or forgiveness, they can be so powerful, but they're because everyone talks about them and they're words just thrown around. These words I feel like become empty sometimes. So at least for me, I realized that, like, yes, one has to be grateful, but one has to be intentionally grateful. I would, at some point, I think for me it just became habit and routine. I would wake up in the morning, I would meditate, I would write down 3 things I was grateful for, but I wasn't doing it intentionally. I would just write it down and then I would be like, okay, I have to rush on with my day, right? Do you find that happens as well?
No, that also is good. It's like, you get up in the morning, meditate, and write 3 things you're grateful for. That kind of sets the mood for the day. Okay. Because you're not getting up in the morning and saying, oh my God, I can't go out. You're saying, hey, like, so I'm 3 things. So that's really nice, actually.
Interesting.
See, I mean, we can be grateful all day long also, but I think doing it once or twice in the day also will set the mood for the day.
Definitely.
And we can also we
Definitely.
can also tell
I didn't
people,
think of it
we
that
can
way.
also appreciate people when someone does something good for us. I've seen so many amazing people in this, during the pandemic. I made friends with people from all over the world, because earlier we used to only hang out with our own
Close
circle and
group.
people
Mm.
close to us and people we could meet. But I think we met so many new people, and I've learned so many new techniques, and I've learned more patience. So I'm grateful for all that. So I think we don't really appreciate that enough, I think.
Mm. That's true. That's very true. And I think just the smallest of compliments can go a really long way, you know. Just and especially with, I think with close friends and family, we forget to tell them because they're around us all the time.
You didn't compliment me on my spectacle look, by the
I should. I should. You
way.
look really. I did before we started this call, but I can do it on the YouTube live
Yeah,
as
like
well.
you can compliment me so everybody else notices it also.
Yeah, you definitely look like someone like
Like,
someone
like
very
intellectual and all.
peaceful, intellectual, like in a very high vibration. No, I am, and I'm not just saying this with the YouTube live. Sharad, I'm so grateful for these conversations with you, and
Yeah,
so
I'm
grateful.
as am I, because when we discuss even the topic that we want to discuss, it just makes me kind of read more and understand more and see if I'm
Definitely.
doing that thing or not. So I think you can never know enough, I think.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. And I think I hope that people are able to have these sort of conversations in the pandemic, because a lot of people are could be feeling very lonely and very isolated. The number of times I feel like I wish I could record conversations with my friends, and screen them on this YouTube live, because they're such joyful, wonderful
Yeah.
conversations. So
So also I think, because I think we have a little, very little time, so I just wanted to also like give a minute on. We need to very very seriously look at what can raise our vibration and
mm,
actually do that in the day. Like
mm,
if there's a song that you like, it will raise your vibe. You enjoy, you dance to it.
mm,
If there are people you like, who can make you laugh, then call them. You
mm,
organize the Zoom call. You
mm,
organize the party. So take that initiative, because eventually, yes, you'll have to do the little effort, but you will be the happier person. Meditation, I would definitely advise twice a day, breath work or meditation, because we really are. We can get swayed with everything that's happening around, right? So we need to take
mm,
that 20 minutes, half an hour or more, and just be with ourselves. It's amazing. Then books, what are we reading, what are we listening to, what videos are we watching, what skills are we upgrading. So all these things can be done, but we have to do it very conscientiously, because otherwise what happens is we can easily get into the arguing with someone, or debating, or one-sided debates, or say watching the news and then getting panicking, and then transmitting that panic onto others. So it's good to be informed, but how much information do we need? We get everything that we need to know anyway. We get it, right? So when I see people watching the news for hours, I'm like, you could have spent those 2 hours just meditating, or listening to some music, or doing your riyaz, or you're learning a new dish, and that will make you feel much better. So why would you not do it?
Absolutely. I think everyone who is able to take charge of their lives in this way, there's so much that can be done at home, and I think all of the keeping up with the news is important, but I think at some point one has to take care of themselves also, so that they can take care of the people around them and actually participate in relief work for the pandemic. So, but coming back to gratitude, can you show us the gratitude exercise? We've talked about
Yeah,
this
sure.
quite a few times.
So we'll just do a quick why don't you close your eyes, and we'll just take a nice breath in, and I'll just say a few things, and just you can just feel them. And as I say it, today I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for this breath. I'm grateful for my body. I'm grateful for the safe space I live in. I'm grateful for the food I get. I'm grateful for the water. I'm grateful for the people in my life. I'm grateful for my skills and talents. I'm grateful to Mother Nature. And now you can just think of anything else you're grateful for, or anyone else you're grateful for, and include them. And as you're doing this, just feel it with your heart. Be genuinely grateful. Grateful to all the technology that is connecting all of us. And now you can gently open your eyes whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Sharad, as always.
You can do this longer, and the other main thing is to feel it when you're doing it, because when, like you said, sometimes we tick mark things, but when we are doing it and we're like, I'm really grateful for this call, for example, and for all my new friends like you and Kartik. Kartik is not my new friend, but it's like a fresh start. So
Yes.
yeah, and Bhavya and everybody. So everyone on the team. So
definitely.
Truly grateful.
Likewise. Thank you so much for joining us, Sharad. Thank you everyone who's joined us on the YouTube live to watch Musings and Meditations with Sharad Jagtiani and conversation with myself, Karima Daya. Please do join us again on Sundays, where Sharad and I talk about meditation, life, and of course, to our little exercise at the end. We are on the Happiness Show, and we will be starting our second segment very soon, Soulful Sunday. This week, our theme is joy. On Soulful Sundays, we get together and we have an open mic. We share stories and poetry. So, Sharad, please do stay on if you'd like. And
I'll watch in a bit. I'm going to my chai break. Thank you so much once again for having me.
Thank you, Sharad. Bye-bye.
Bye.
For everyone else watching on the YouTube live, we will be back very, very shortly with Soulful Sunday open mic. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We're just waiting for some more guests to come in. Hi, Radha.
Hi, Garima.
Just waiting for some more guests to come in. I would request you to switch off your mic and your video till then. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in. My name is Garima, and I'm part of the Happiness Collective. We're going to be starting shortly. I would request you to switch off your video and your mic till then. Till we wait for more participants to join in, I would ask you to reflect on this quote. Great. I think we have everyone on board. Good evening, everyone. For those in the Zoom call, I would like to remind you that this event is being live streamed on The Happiness Show. The Happiness Show is a weekly segment that the Happiness Collective presents on Sunday evenings, where we have Soulful Sunday open mic, followed by candid conversations with changemakers. Right before this event, we had musings and meditations with Sharad Jagtiani. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, both at Zoom in the open mic and on the YouTube Live. This week's theme is joy, something that can be particularly difficult to find in these terribly, terribly unprecedented times. I hope you can take a moment to reflect on what is in front of you on the screen. As another exercise, I will be sending a link in the chat. I would request everyone to fill out this link will take you to a website for a word cloud and will ask you what makes you joyful. In a few seconds, when everyone has filled this out, I will be screening the results. Hope everyone is doing well today. Hope you can find something to be grateful about. We have responses coming in. A few more moments, and I'm so excited to share this with you. I feel a little bit like a sadist, keeping these responses from you, but I think that builds the suspense. Great. I think it's about time we see our answers. So we have pets, child, smile, music, poetry, people, cuddling, definitely, sharing, company, good tea, mountains, and smiley faces. All wonderful things. I think everyone has filled this out. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. My name is Garima, and I am part of the Happiness Collective. The Happiness Collective is a community of citizens who have come together in times of the pandemic to build resources around mental health and emotional wellness. This event, the Soulful Sunday Open Mic, this week's theme being joy, is being hosted with our partner organization, Slam Out Loud. I would like to welcome my co-host, Radha. Radha, switch on your video.
Hi, Garima. Thank you.
Radha, we can't see you. We can't see your video.
Garima, I think you'll need to allow me to share my video because I think it was stopped in the beginning.
My bad. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Great.
My name is Radha. I'm a university student studying English language and linguistics. I'm currently living in New Delhi with my pet and my family. And I love all things social media, so I'm currently interning with Slam Out Loud. SOL is a non-profit which advocates for the introduction of the arts in education and developing creative confidence skills in children from underserved communities. And we co-host the Soulful Sunday series with the Happiness Collective. So I am so excited to welcome you all today on behalf of the Soulmate team.
Thank you so much, Radha. So everyone who's joined and everyone watching on the YouTube live stream, I'll quickly walk us through the format for today's evening. This is an open mic, but we do have featured guests. We have Dr. Neha Saini and Anubhav Tekwani, who have very graciously joined us. We will be going into breakout rooms after our featured performances, and where you can share your stories and poetry on joy. We will be coming back to the main room after that, and then whoever feels comfortable can feel free to take the open mic to share in the main room as well. One thing, a little game that Radha and I thought that we could play with ourselves as hosts and with our featured guests was Two Truths and a Lie, Joy Edition. So I'm going to tell you three things that supposedly make me joyful, but only two of them actually make me joyful and one of them doesn't. I would request everyone to type in your chat box what you think is a thing that doesn't make me happy. Please type it out, don't press enter, and then we'll all press enter together. So my three options are, listen carefully, Bollywood movies, namkeen food, and Sunday naps. Which one do you think does not make me joyful? Please type out your answers. If you've typed out your answers, could you raise your hand with the reactions button at the bottom of your Zoom screen? Okay. For new people joining us, we're playing a little game. We're guessing what is a lie and what are the truths. So I've given three things that supposedly make me joyful, but only 2 of them actually make me joyful. The options are Bollywood movies, namkeen food, and Sunday naps. So if you could type out your answers in the chat box and then we'll press enter together. Okay, I think we have enough people who've raised their hands. Go. Fascinating. Most people said namkeen food. Radha, we can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, I think it's like split between Bollywood movies and namkeen
Movies
food.
and namkeen food. I have a feeling most people said namkeen food, and I knew this would happen because you can tell that I have a sweet tooth. You know? But anyway, thank you so much, everyone. We're going to do the same exercise with Radha.
Okay.
So Radha, tell us 3 things.
All right. So my 3 things are long drives, Bengan, and kurkure. So you have to guess which one does not make me joyful. So if everybody types it out in the chat but presses enter together. And if you've guessed, you can raise your hand.
Some people have their hands raised from last time. So if you could put down your hand and then raise it again. So it's Bengan, long drives, and
Kurkure.
And kurkure.
Yes.
If kurkure is something that doesn't make you joyful, I don't know how we'll be friends. Because kurkure is like my lifeblood.
We'll see.
Someone's already guessed Bengan. Please don't guess already. Just type it out in your chat box and we'll press enter together. I feel like you do like healthy food. So you might actually like Bengan. I'm not sure.
What about long drives though? Everybody loves long drives.
I think you're misleading me because long drives can be very painful if you're riding up the hills. Okay, I think there's enough suspense already. Everyone press enter. Interesting. Is that true, Radha?
A lot of people. It's actually long drives. I don't enjoy long drives a lot because they make me car sick. I love kurkure and I love Bengan, surprisingly. So yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for indulging us in this little exercise. The good thing is that Sunday naps, which I did have one today, and Bollywood movies make me very, very joyful. And we now know that Bengan is...
can also be joyful.
Bengan is a source of joy for some people in this world, and so is kurkure, thank God. And long drives are maybe not.
Okay, so with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our very first performer for the day, Anubhav Tekwani. And Anubhav, I have to say your introduction is the best one that I've read in a hot second. So I'm going to lead with that now. Bollywood fan and special aficionado, Anubhav begrudgingly resides in what he considers the Florida of Delhi NCR, which is a hit to the amount of Delhi he is. He is somewhat of a literature student, somewhat of a poet, and somewhat est of an Emily Dickinson enthusiast, and 100% a loud, angry feminist types. He has been writing poetry for more than 8 years and has been performing it for more than 3, and has won prizes in debating, quizzing, poetry slams around the country, alongside having been published in the anthology Whispers of the New Rain. And he was also a Jijivisha Poetry Fellow with Slam Out Loud in the 2019 and to 2020 cohort. So thank you so much for joining today, Anubhav. And now you have to give us your 2 truths and 1 lie about what makes you joyful. So if you give them to us now, then the audience can guess.
All right. Thank you for that introduction. That's very kind of you. But I've not been under the camera before. Okay, so my 3 things are cheese and food, cheese. Number 2, my relationship, and number 3, terribly long walk.
Okay. cheese, his relationship, and terribly long walks. I think the terribly in the long walks kind of gives it away, but I'll still wait. So, everyone, if you could please think of your answers, type them out, but press enter at the count of 3. And also, please raise your hand if you've guessed, and then we can go ahead with the answering session. Okay. I see. Okay, let's wait a couple more seconds and then we can go for it. All right, so now that everybody has had enough time to guess, let's press enter at the count of 1, 2, and 3. Enter. Okay, so I see a lot of cheese. And I think long walks comes in second. So, Anubhav, what is the answer? What's the truth? I don't think we can hear you still.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got
go
a
ahead.
phone call. My bad. The terribly long walks is meant to mislead people. I love terribly long walks. And cheese is the correct answer. I do not like cheese and food at all. I once had a terrible dream that I had to pay 40 rupees for one golgappa, which was made with cheese.
Oh,
and I didn't even
no.
have the 40 rupees for it.
Well, as a lactose intolerant person, I can totally relate with that. So most of you guessed right. That is so cool. Thank you for participating in that. And all right, so take it away, Anubhav. It's time for your performance.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I'm audible, right? Clearly, my words
Yeah,
are coming
you
across
are.
all right.
Yeah.
So this first poem that I'm performing today, I wrote it on a day that my partner had a very, very important college interview, and she was very nervous the entire day. She was, I think, waiting on a result the entire day, and she was very, very nervous. So I wrote this poem with all of the comforting images that I knew she would like, so that she'd feel better after reading it. And I hope that it gives you some of the comfort she claimed it gave her. I don't know if she was lying just to keep my heart, but either way. Um, you're sitting on your French window, soles hanging above the grass. The wind tickles your face and you close your eyes. And if you focus enough, it sings you your favorite Beach Boys song. You open your eyes, and sure enough, a baby bird takes their first flight to join. The mother chirps in approval of their first breath. There's a knock on the door, and the priest from that one show sits on one knee holding out his hand. You let him lead you into the carriage, and he whispers your name into your ears repeatedly, as if it is a favorite prayer. The carriage drives past empty playgrounds and flourishing fields and terminates itself at a cliff. It's like your French window, but the metaphor's extended now. You put your head on your favorite shoulder and see the sunset against the wave as your avian friend flies across. You wake out of your slumber and turn over to stare at your own face in the mirror. You can see the French window in the reflection and two lovebirds making their nest in the Casiruana tree. You've made it 10th and you'll make it 4th. The sun's just risen and the eggs are going to hatch. Thank you. That was my first poem. And like I said, I hope that it gives you some comfort.
Thank you so much, Anubhav. That was so, so beautiful. That was the first poem that you've ever written?
No, that was the first. That was the first poem that I thought of when I thought of joy, because that is what just comes to me.
Please let us know in the comments what you thought of Anubhav's poem. I'm so glad I'm pronouncing Anubhav's name right, because so far I've been pronouncing it Abhinav. We have Snaps AF. That was beautiful. Your girlfriend is very, very lucky, and I really hope her college interview went well. Our next featured guest is Dr. Neha Saini. Neha and I go way back. We both actually did the Jijivisha Fellowship together in 2017 at Slam Out Loud. Neha, can we have you on video? Are you here? Neha might not have been able to join us. She did say she's having some internet problems.
Yeah, I think she was having some network issues.
She's here. She's here.
Okay, awesome.
Hi, Neha. Neha, are you able to come on video?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Neha, we can hear you. Are you able to come on video? If not, that's totally fine as well.
Yeah, just give me 1 minute.
Absolutely. Sure. Neha has just started working at a de-addiction center in a Naxal area. So congratulations, Neha, on your new job. I was just telling the audience about the work that you do as a doctor. Neha is also interested in applications of psychiatry and public health. And it's such an honor to know her. Neha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I couldn't see you responding.
Yeah, that's really kind of you to say.
Okay, great. I could go on and on about Neha, but Neha, please take it away. Share what you have for us tonight.
So, should I share the things that I like and...
Yes, I forgot. I'm sorry. Terrible host I am. Neha, please tell us 2 truths and a lie. 3 things.
Sunsets, rock music, and weddings.
Sunsets, rock music, and weddings. I feel like since I've known Neha in the past, this might be a little easy to guess. Members of the audience, if you've guessed Neha's lie, you can type it out in your chat box and you can press enter at the count of 3. And you can also raise your hand to let me know that you've figured out your answer. Rock music, weddings, and what was the third one?
Sunsets.
Sorry?
Sunsets.
Sunsets. Well, she definitely loves sunsets. I can give you that.
See, that's cheating.
I'm just helping my audience out here. Okay, 3, 2, 1, enter. Weddings. It seems to be a tie between weddings and rock music. Neha, do you want to tell us which one makes you less?
I'm not a big fan of weddings and meeting a lot of relatives and other people. But yeah, I do enjoy rock music.
I thought you would be a wedding.
And I love sunsets so much.
Of course you love sunsets. What's your favorite rock band or rock artist?
Evanescence.
Of course. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Neha, and also for reminding me that we had to do this little exercise with you. Now, please take it away. The floor is yours.
Okay, so I have a little poem for me, and I had strict instructions from Jigyasa that this is the poem that she wants to hear from me. So that's the one I'm going to perform. It's called From Summer Vacations to Summer Internships. गर्मियां मतलब गर्मियों की छुट्टियां मतलब नानी का घर, भाई बहन, दूरदर्शन पर तरंग, बेमौसम बारिश, आंगन में जमा हुए पानी पर तैरती डूबती कागज की नाव, हॉलिडे होमवर्क, स्क्रैप बुक और आम। मुझे पसंद था सफेदा, खट्टा और सख्त। मेरी बहन को पसंद था दशहरी, जिसे वो चूसने वाला आम कहती थी। मम्मा, इसे पिलपिला करके दो ना। अपनी नंगी उंगलियां दबाए, आम को मुंह से लगाए, वह ऐसे इत्मीनान से आम का लुत्फ उठाती, इतना आनंद शायद किसी को 56 भोग में ना आए। और दिन में घर में 12 बार पोछा न लगाना पड़े, इसलिए उसे सिंक पर खड़े होकर आम खाने की हिदायत दी जाती। पीले दांत, सने कपड़े और चिपचिपी चप्पल, बाथरूम में खड़े होकर बाल्टी भर आम खाता, मेरा बचपन। गर्मियों में लाइट चले जाने पर घर के बाहर चारपाई बिछा घंटों पंखा चलती दादी से कहानी सुनता, मेरा बचपन। राजा रानी विष्णु श्री कृष्ण, भालू बंदर शेख चिल्ली की कहानी। That's how I learned to dream, unabashed and carefree, with a fearless heart and an open mind. My thoughts knew not the confines of reality. My wishes to logic blind. बेटा, बड़े होकर क्या बनोगे? Astronaut, princess, rocket scientist, a gypsy, a soldier, a doctor, a Hogwarts student. But then one day everything changes. No more summer vacations. And now when you tell them that your dream job is to be a space archaeologist, no one really laughs. Congratulations, you're an adult now. Your destiny lies in the palm of your own hand. You're standing in the middle of a jungle and there are an infinite number of paths ahead of you. Pick one. Anyone? Yes, anyone, only it should be something practical, something creative, something fulfilling, something you're passionate about, but something that leaves you enough time for your family. Also it must be financially viable, because money is important, son. You must dominate the world. But also you must save the world. मैं और मेरे सपने जैसे साबुन के पानी के बुलबुले, और ये दुनिया जैसे एक कटीली झाड़ी. Those who haven't dealt with broken dreams or shattered hopes shall never know how hard it is to cope. For to kill a dream is to kill a hopeful 6-year-old. And when one dream shatters, you're anxious to protect the other ones. Maybe one way to do that is to stuff them unfinished in the box under your bed, just until a better time arrives. Maybe my dreams will turn to reality, maybe they will turn to dust, but I'm not ready for the verdict, not today. I just want to relish the possibility a little while longer. भैया आगे से लेफ्ट लेना. अब जून समर वेकेशंस का नहीं, समर इंटर्नशिप्स का महीना है. तो गर्मियों में रिक्शा पकड़ इंटर्नशिप की जद्दोजहद जारी है, मगर मेरे अंदर की वो बच्ची अभी जिंदा है, मेरे मन के किसी कोने में. बस भैया यहीं पर मैं रिक्शे से उतर अपने माथे का पसीना पहुंचती हूँ, और वो अपनी नन्ही आम से चिपकती उंगलियां किसी पुरानी स्क्रैपबुक में दबे एक सपने पर फेरती है. अपने आम के धब्बे वाले टॉप से उसकी धूल पहुंचती है, और फिर चुपके से आके मेरे कान में मुस्कुराती है. नेहा सैनी, best-selling author, and just for a second, I let her wonder, I let her dream how it would be, what it would feel like. She claps and gasps in excitement, and then she looks at me, she winks and she says, maybe someday. Thank you.
That was so incredibly stunning, Neha. I've seen you perform this poem before, and it's one of my favorite pieces by you. Thank you so much for sharing. Please let us know in the comments how you felt about the poem. And also let us know in the comments something that you dreamt of being when you were a child. This time you don't have to wait to press enter with everyone. Please just let us know. Neha, people are in awe of your poem. Some people have goosebumps, they're speechless, so relatable, brilliant. Made me dream of happier childhood days. People wanted to be astronauts when they were children. I can see this in the comments. I really love the part, Neha, when you said you wanted to be a princess. I think that was also my childhood dream. Well, I think moving on, the next segment of the open mic is going into breakout rooms. I will be putting all of us into smaller rooms. You will be invited to go in very soon. Please share your stories and your poetry on joy with the people in the breakout rooms. And after about 10 minutes, I will call everyone back and open the floor up for the open mic. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, so if everybody is back, it is my pleasure to now ask the audience to take the floor. And we don't really have a particular order for this. So if any of you feel comfortable performing, please come forward. The stage is now yours.
You can switch on your video, unmute yourself, and take the floor. Shilpi, go ahead. You can switch on your video, unmute yourself.
The video open नहीं कर सकती, sorry.
कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात नहीं. Thank you so much for coming as our first performer on this open mic.
कोई बात नहीं दीदी, इतनी हिम्मत तो नेहा दीदी ने मुझे दी है.
बहुत बढ़िया. So why don't we do this? Why don't we play the same game with Shilpi that we've played with all of our hosts and our featured guests? Shilpi,
Yes.
2 truths and a lie. So 2 things that make you very happy and joyful, and 1 thing that doesn't. But make it 1 thing that can't be easily guessed. So give us 3 options, and then we as the audience will guess.
Okay. My 3 things is friendship goal, friendship, and second is studies, and third is dancing.
Dancing. So the audience, friendship, studies, and dancing. 2 truths and a lie. 2 of these things make Shilpi very joyful. 1 of them not so much. It's our time to guess.
Can
Someone
you
says
repeat the
studies.
3 again?
Yes, friendship, studies, and dancing. I'm typing it out in the chat box as well. Someone says you don't like dancing. Someone says studies is a lie. Another person says studies. Audience, you can go ahead and type out your answers and press enter. We don't have to do it together this time. Jigyasa says actually dancing is a lie. Well, we'll have to find out after we get a few more answers, and then we'll ask Shilpi herself. Shilpi, is that true? Is dancing the lie?
Yes, dancing is lie.
No way, no way. I could tell that you're someone who likes studying. So I'm actually quite ready to believe that dancing is something that does not make you very happy. But Shilpi, thank you so much for coming on this open mic. Please take the floor. It's all yours.
You're muted, Garima.
I was going to say Shilpi is muted. We're all muted. Shilpi, you're muted.
शिल्पी आप शेयर कर सकते हो अपनी फॉर्म अनम्यूट करो और शेयर कर लो 2 मिनट रुकोगे क्या करोगे मैगी बनानी है over to Karim and Radha.
That is also a lie. Since we're playing 2 truths and a lie, Maggie cannot be made in 2 minutes.
Modern myths. Okay, so in the meantime, does anybody else want to come forward and perform? This is very casual, so not a high pressure situation. Please feel free to step forward.
You can also just step forward and share a story about us, about an incident or a time in your life that was very joyful.
Absolutely. Anything that brings you joy or reminds you of joy. Go for it. We did have a really cool poem in our breakout room. Actually, we had 3 poems because we put the host and we put one of the featured performer in the same breakout room. So
Guys, this is a small, intimate space. Please
yeah,
feel free to share. Of course, there is no pressure.
Garima, do you want to perform for us?
Perform for the audience. I was
Other
not.
Garima.
Oh, the
We have 2 Garimas here today.
There are 2 Garimas here.
Yeah.
So now you have put me in that spot.
Yes, because your poem was so good and we all deserve to hear it today.
Okay, because this was the first time that I was performing it. So this would be the second time, just a few minutes back.
Congratulations. That makes this group and this evening even more special now that we have Garima share her first poem with us.
And this is the first one that I wrote, I suppose, a very long back, very long back. I remember that misty day. I was passing by a fence ablaze, pinned by something where I stood, pieces of glass bangles when I looked. Pain moved me to tears, but there was something else I feared. Bloodshed not only from my foot, but its patches marked a helpless wound. Questions were raised in my mind, answers to which I could not define. Was it a mother who lost her son, or a lady abandoned by love? It should not be an aborting leap. Not again a woman raped would I tolerate. I'm just a leaf who is plucked to suffer by the thieves. I know my cries are left unheard, same as my friend just murdered. That's
That was beautiful, Garima. That did not sound like a first poem at all to me.
Absolutely. So good.
When did you start writing?
uh, I could not hear you.
I said, when did you start writing?
I started writing, I suppose, just diary entry or something like that when I was in 10th standard. And I guess when I was in my first, I did not write any poem or something like that. Or if I did, that must have been very childish, when we are in that age and we have so many things going on. So maybe I would have written something like that I don't even remember. But this was the first one that I wrote in my first year of graduation, I suppose, when I was 18 or 19. So that's when I started writing. This is the only English one that I feel has some credibility to it. The others are in Hindi.
So do you write in Hindi as well then?
I used to.
Nice. Why
Yeah,
don't
I
we play
have.
two? Sorry, go ahead.
No. I'm done. Please go ahead.
No, what were you saying? I want to know.
I was just saying that I have a lot written in Hindi as compared to what I have in English. That's it.
If you're comfortable, is there something that you'd like to share in Hindi?
Yeah, not today. Today is not today because I'll have to find something out because I have a lot and not so much joyful.
Of course. Why don't we play Two Truths and a Lie with you as well?
Okay. Just give me a minute. I need to think about it.
Two things that make you joyful. One thing that
Uh, One would be traveling. Second, eating. Third, working.
traveling, working, and what was the last one?
Eating.
Eating. Audience, you can send in your answers as you would like. Traveling, working, and eating. Which one do we think Garima does not like? Not me, Garima, the other Garima. Rather, which one do you think it is?
I think it's definitely working.
Working can be a source of joy,
But compared to traveling and eating,
I hate traveling. I am so joyful that the pandemic, well, that's a horribly scandalous thing to say. I'm not joyful for the pandemic, but I'm joyful for the fact that I do not have to travel.
Yeah,
The
no
pandemic.
travel obligations anymore. True.
Working,
Okay.
traveling,
Yeah.
working. Karima, can you tell us which one it is?
Yes. We
Yeah,
want to know.
it is working. It's not like I don't like working, but at time it's so much to take, and I like
Yeah,
eating and traveling better.
Fair enough. So I think Radha won on that one.
I
Comprise,
did. Working
comprise.
can be nice, but it doesn't necessarily have to bring you a lot of joy sometimes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Living
Yeah.
under late capitalism. I think Shilpi is ready to perform. Shilpi, are you here?
Yes, the I'm here.
Amazing. Welcome back.
Thank you, Dee.
Chalo. Go ahead with your poem whenever you'd like.
ओके सो टॉपिक इज एसिड अटैक एंड ये मैंने 2 दिन पहले ही लिखी है क्योंकि मैं सोच रही थी कि मैं अपनी ही एक बुक लिखूं जिसमें मेरी सारी पोएम्स हो और लोग भी पढ़ पाए उनको क्योंकि अभी मेरे को इतना टाइम नहीं मिलता कि मैं अलग अलग जाके अपनी पोएम डिसाइड कर सकूं और वैसे भी कोविड चल रहा है तो मैंने सोचा कि मैं अपनी एक बुक लिखूं तो ये पोएम उसी में से एक है मैं ये भी उसमें डालने वाली हूँ तो मेरी पोएम इस तरह स्टार्ट होती है इस नफरत की दुनिया में कुछ नाम मैं भी कमाना चाहती थी उन आजाद पंछियों की तरह मैं भी खुले आसमान में उड़ना चाहती थी लोगों की नजरों से दूर कहीं अपनी ही एक दुनिया बसाना चाहती थी दुख का तो पता नहीं लेकिन दूसरों के चेहरे की मुस्कान बनना चाहती थी लेकिन शायद नहीं पसंद था उसका मेरा यूं मुस्कुराना लेकिन शायद नहीं पसंद था उसको मेरा यूं मुस्कुराना इसीलिए उसको प्यार से ज्यादा अपने गुरूर को पड़ा अपनाना तेजाब डालकर मैं उसकी हूँ उसे यही बताना था तेजाब डालकर मैं उसकी हूँ उसे यही बताना था मेरी चमकते सुबह को उसे काली रात बनाना था मेरी आंखों के साथ उनमें बसे तमाम सपने भी झुलूस गए मेरी आंखों के साथ उनमें बसे तमाम सपने भी झुलूस गए हम तो बेवजह ही उसकी मोहब्बत में लुट गए और किस मुंह से तुम्हें कुछ कहूँ किस मुंह से तुम्हें कुछ कहूँ तुमने तो मुंह से भी हमें जुदा कर दिया ये बस इतनी है
So good, Shilpi. That was amazing, and I have goosebumps once again. Thank you for sharing.
We have wow reactions, Shilpi. ये आपने कब कैसे लिखी? How did you get inspired to write this poem?
ये 2 दिन पहले मैं ऐसी मतलब मेरा एक पार्टनर भी है जिसमें ये बराबर का हकदार है सिराज जो यहाँ पर है और मतलब मैंने अपना आइडिया इससे शेयर करा कि मेरे को ऐसे ऐसे बुक लिखनी है तो मैंने इसकी हेल्प मांगी तो एक और पोयम है जो मैंने और इसने मिलके लिखी थी तो वो पता नहीं दी वो डिसाइड कर सकती हूँ मैं मतलब जो मैंने और उसने मिलके लिखी थी
Yes, of course, please.
सिराज तेरे पास वो पोयम है तो तू भी सुना सकता है मतलब जो लाइन तूने बताई थी और जो मैंने बताई थी तो एक एक करके सुना सकते हैं अगर इफ यू वांट अच्छा वो है नहीं सॉरी तो मैं ही
चलो,
सुना
कोई
रही
बात
थी
हाँ,
तो
ठीक
उस दिन बारिश हो रही थी तो उसी दिन मैंने इसे अपना आइडिया शेयर करा था तो इसने कहा चल पहला टॉपिक बारिश पे ही लिखता है तो ये बारिश पे है आज फिर से बादल छाए हैं देर से ही सही खुल के मुस्कुराए मुस्कुराने की वजह तुम हो ये बादल कभी ना कम हो इनकी हर बूंद में है दीदार तेरा इसीलिए महक उठता है आंगन मेरा तेरे दूर रहकर भी पास होने का एहसास होता है बारिश न आने पर दिल तुझे याद करके रोता है ये दूरी भी एक दिन कम हो जाएगी फिर मेरी याद तुझे कभी नहीं सताएगी तो दीदी ये मैंने और इसने मिलके लिखी थी तो बस ये मेरा क्राइम पार्टनर भी है हर पार्टनर है
That's
So
so
sweet,
wonderful.
Shilpi. Thank you.
So wonderful कि आपके जिंदगी में कोई ऐसा दोस्त है जिसके बारे में आप एक ऐसी पोएम लिख सकते हो नो hearing your poem really made me miss all of my friends. शिल्पी आपके लिए चैट बॉक्स में कमेंट्स आ रहे हैं so cute, you're so adorable, the sweetest. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Shilpi, today.
दी अभी तो मेरा मन कर रहा है कि बस मैं सुनाती जाऊं, लेकिन बाकी को भी चांस मिलना चाहिए.
नहीं, बिल्कुल. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Please just switch on your video, unmute yourself. We would love to know your stories and your poetry on joy. This can be a particularly hard time for all of us, isolated from our loved ones, away from our friends. We hope this evening can be an opportunity for you to come together with strangers that feel like friends. People might not be comfortable with us. Do you think we should call people on, Radha, or do you think that's too invasive?
If you remember who went into each breakout room, then we can talk about what they discussed and if they talked about anything they want to share.
I wouldn't actually remember.
Okay,
But,
no worries. Then
would someone like to share what they heard in their breakout room and how that made them feel? You don't have to switch on your video. You can just unmute.
Yeah, whatever you're comfortable with, friends.
That's okay. I think sometimes
Okay.
listening can just be as good. So Shilpi, now that we don't have anyone else who would like to share, would you like to tell us another poem?
यस दी, एक पोएम है जो नेहा दीदी को मेरी बहुत पसंद है, और जब भी मैं ओपन माइक में गई थी तो उन्होंने कहा था स्पेशली कि ये वाली पोएम तो जरूर सुनाएगी, तो वही पोएम मैं आज भी सुनाना चाहती हूँ, क्योंकि नेहा दीदी भी है, इसलिए मतलब बहुत बहुत साल नहीं, 1-2 साल तो हो ही गई होगी हमको मिले हुए, क्योंकि कोविड की वजह से हम उनसे मिल भी नहीं पा रहे हैं, तो ऐसी बातचीत हो जाती है, तो मैं उनकी फेवरेट पोएम सुनाना चाहूंगी.
बस बढ़िया, नेहा ने बोला है तो सही होगा. चलो आप हमें भी सुना दो आज. कौन सी पोएम है ये ऐसी? शिल्पी, आप अपना वीडियो ऑन कर सकते हो?
क्या दीदी?
आप अपना वीडियो ऑन कर सकते हो? अगर नहीं कर सकते तो ठीक है.
नो दीदी, इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल, नेट का थोड़ा इशू हुआ है.
कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात नहीं. हमें आपकी आवाज बिल्कुल ठीक से सुनाई दे रही है. आप हमें पोएम ही सुना दो.
तो टॉपिक का नाम है हताश. तू किस लिए हताश है, खुशियों को भी तेरी तलाश है, तेरे गम में होने का भी हमें एहसास है, सब कुछ तो तेरे पास है, तू किस लिए हताश है, पूरे जहां में तेरा वास है, तू लोगों का विश्वास है, हजारों लोगों को भी घबराहट है, तू किस लिए हताश है, इरादे भी ठोस है, मन में भी जोश है, चीजों में भी सांस है, तू किस लिए हताश है, खुदा भी तेरे साथ है, घबराने की क्या बात है, तू किस लिए हताश है. बस इतनी है.
Thank you so much for sharing, Shilpi. बहुत सुंदर poems हैं आपकी, and they have absolutely made my day. So thank you everybody for your lovely performances. Thank you to our featured guests. Thank you, Shilpi. Thank you, Garima. And with that, we are at the end of this evening. So as a little closing activity, I want to request everybody to think of something that has made you joyful during this event, and type out your answers in the chat, but we will only press enter at the count of 3. So anything, smallest little thing that made you happy during this event, something that made you think of joy, something that brought you joy, put it in the chat box. And if everybody has thought of their answers, then you can raise your hand or give us a little reaction so we know. Okay, so I think we should go for it. And 1, 2, 3, everybody can enter. Such lovely answers.
I can see
Okay,
the
I'm gonna
entire
read.
event can't figure out one moment.
Yeah,
That's so wonderful. Seeing people I adore,
absolutely.
Neha, Anubhav, Apurva, Jigyasa, seeing the bachchus on the call, hearing Anubhav recite his poems, listening to and meeting the kids' cute, joyful stories, meeting new old Didi Bhaiya and remembering the old memories. So beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. In fact, your replies have been the most joyful part of my event. So, yeah.
Most joyful part
over
of
to
my
you.
event, since I wasn't in the breakout rooms, was co-hosting with Radha.
Yay. Okay, so I think we are done with the replies. So,
I
over to you,
think
Garima.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. The Soulful Sunday Open Mic event is part of a larger YouTube live stream on the Happiness Show. We have our third and last segment on the show starting at 7:30 p.m. Candid Conversations with Changemakers. This week we have as our feature Ghanshyam Tiwari. Ghanshyam Tiwari is the founder of Parliamentarians for Innovators India, and he will be in conversation with Kartik Desai, who is the founder of Happiness Collective and the current executive director of Asha Impact. They will be talking about happiness, well-being, social change in times of the pandemic, and specifically some of the amazing initiatives that Mr. Tiwari has been leading. We hope you can join on the live stream in the link that I have just sent on the chat box. Thank you so much again for joining, everyone, for sharing your stories and joy. The times of the pandemic are particularly hard, and it really means a lot to us that you have taken time and energy out to share your joy with other people. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining back. We're about to begin our final segment of the Happiness Show, Candid Conversations with Changemakers, featuring Ghanshyam Tiwari in conversation with Kartik Desai. Hello, Kartik. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you, Bhav. We're just waiting for Ghanshyam, I think, right?
Yes.
Hi, Chandni.
Hi, Kartik.
How are
Looking
you?
good. Nice, bright yellow
Thanks.
buttons and stuff. What is it? It's a kurta?
Yeah, it's like a kurta,
Oh, okay.
actually.
You
I
can-
think we just need 1 or 2 minutes for Ghanshyam to join. And we've got a few more people also coming in to our live audience today.
Yes, absolutely. In the meantime, I'd like to introduce you, Kartik. For our audience, Kartik Desai is the founder of the Happiness Collective, and he is also the executive director of Asha Impact, one of India's best-known impact investment and policy advocacy platforms, also a leader in development finance and creating public-private partnerships. Today, Kartik will be speaking to Ghanshyam Tiwari, a politician who is also a development-focused social entrepreneur and has been working on a range of solutions with startups, founders, and investors on the COVID challenge. Thank you so much for joining us, Kartik. And I'm excited to have Ghanshyam Tiwari as well.
Yeah, Ghanshyam is in the waiting room. You can let him in.
Yes.
Wonderful. And if you can just spotlight the two of us, Garima, we'll get started with the event. And hi, Malika. Thank you for joining us. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Ghanshyam. Thank you for being with us. So thank you guys for all joining us for episode 2 of Candid Conversations. This is a show that we have here on the Happiness channel every Sunday evening between 7:30 and 8:30. So to all of you guys who are watching on YouTube Live, thank you for being here. And thank you most of all to Ghanshyam. So just to give you a brief context of what we're here to do, and thank you also, I should say, to the folks who are here live in the room with us. We've got about 7 to 10 people who are part of the studio audience, you can call it. So after about half an hour or so, we'll open it up and we'll have an open interaction. So I'll just give a very, very quick background and introduction to THC. The Happiness Collective is basically a not-for-profit that me and several friends have set up over the last few months, given the situation that our country is facing, and particularly this issue of mental and emotional health, and essentially trying to create a gateway where in a slightly more accessible way, people can engage through digital content, through various events and programming, and through access to counselors. The program that we're doing, which we're currently focusing on, is really about trying to highlight and showcase to people who are people and what are examples of people who are using these difficult times to do something, challenging but very, very critical. We all are very, very, stressed by the fact with all the challenges that our country is facing, and how do we respond to them. So we're very, very fortunate and pleased to have Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari with us. I'll just give you a quick background. Ghanshyam is someone who's has a very unique background. He was born in 1979, and he has had a very interesting journey. He was from an Air Force family, and was born in Andhra Pradesh, traveled across India, went abroad for his higher studies. He has studied electrical engineering at NIT. Then he went to Kellogg, where he did his MBA in management in 2011. Then he went to Harvard, where he earned a master's degree in public policy and administration. After returning to India, Ghanshyam has had a career both in politics as well as in, you can call it, entrepreneurship or sociopreneurship. So he's been working in Bihar. He was working as part of the JDU government from 2010 to 2015. He has also subsequently worked in Uttar Pradesh with the Samajwadi Party, where he was its national spokesperson. Recently, in 2019, Ghanshyam contested the national elections, the Lok Sabha constituency of Karakat in Bihar. So this is the background Ghanshyam has. And it's wonderful to have someone from the governance and the political domain here with us. But I would not want to stop there, because what really makes Ghanshyam interesting is the type of work that he's been doing in, for lack of a better word, and this is what we will come to Ghanshyam and try to understand better how he himself thinks about it. I was going to call it sociopreneurship or development finance, because the way I think about it is basically a Venn diagram of three forces: the private sector, the civil society, which is NGOs, and the government. That in order to do meaningful things in life, all three are going to be important. The government is the biggest actor here, right? So, they're super important and they set the rules. However, they don't always do the best job of dealing with the problems on the ground. We've seen this in COVID, that often NGOs and civil society have done a better job than government. So government and civil society really need to cooperate. That's very hard to do. At Asha Impact and in the various organizations in which I have worked, we have seen that. And a lot of us on this call are familiar with that. So this collaboration between government and civil society, and also with private sector, because that's where the capital can come from. So Ghanshyam has launched something called PII, Parliamentarians and Innovators for India, in the immediate aftermath of COVID. It was a wonderful initiative, which basically brought together parliamentarians cutting across party lines, impact investors and development funders, including institutions like Asha, Avishkar, and various well-known venture capital funds that you guys would all be aware of, and public policy experts, particularly in healthcare, and different initiatives that folks across India were working on, let's say, healthcare, whether it's immediate relief of ventilators or PPE kits or vaccination, or if it's, let's say, on the service side on education or mental health, or if it's about livelihoods, dealing with the impacts of the lockdown, the migrant crisis. There's so many issues. So there's different organizations working on this. How do we find the best solutions and scale them to deal with these solutions adequately? This is what PII was doing. So this is the broad context. Of course, out of PII, several very interesting initiatives have come out, which Ghanshyam and different team members are now leading, and this is often in partnership with industry and government. So this is the introduction to the wonderful work Ghanshyam is doing. The format that we normally follow for these events is we take about 30-40 minutes to broadly cover three areas. One is, I would love to, we're going to have Ghanshyam talk about his work and how does he, how does he think about this notion of public-private partnership, or a better way of calling it is maybe public entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship in the public sector. Second part of it is to get a little bit of insights, into his personal journey and how did he come up, with this public entrepreneurship idea. And third is to directly deep dive into some of these examples. I think that's what people are most keen to understand, specifically in the area of education, mental health, and so on. What are some of the initiatives that PII is doing? And then we can talk more about that. So with that, welcome Ghanshyam. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'm going to ask you immediately to just, building upon what I said, people have a general idea of what you do. But if you could give us a sense of what is public entrepreneurship and how has that informed your journey in life?
Well, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Kartik. It's great to be on this platform with all the ignited minds and to share some of the ideas that I have come across in building my own journey towards public service and now public entrepreneurship. When I spoke about public entrepreneurship, this is a culmination of things that I have done, which started from growing up across the country in the Indian Air Force bases and understanding the diversity of India as it is by crisscrossing the country. I was fortunate to live in more than 10 states and come across very diverse cultures. Also, the Air Force bases are places where it's a microcosm of India. You have people from across the country, and simple concepts become very, very real and easily understandable to you. For example, the fact that there's so much debate on nationalism, for example, that who's nationalistic, who's not. Um, Living in such a place, you realize that basically nationalism is not about asking somebody else that how nationalistic you are. It is about saying that this is what I bring to the table for the country and for the society. This is how I want to do it. That is what nationalism for me became. Also, Air Force bases were places where people had a dignified life, irrespective of the trade that they did. Unlike in society around us, people are often given respect based on what they do. And as a result, it creates a myopic view of society for each of us. Um, it gave me a sense of what true equality and dignity of labor is. And I'm very fortunate for that kind of upbringing. And finally, these places placed a very high level of trust in the integrity of the person, because people are going to put their lives on the line on the command of a commander. So as a result, you have to live with an idea of impeccable integrity. So for me, these became the foundations as I started my career. Also, I come from Bihar, a small village, and right from very beginning, it was very clear that I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate to, even though it was a middle class upbringing, I was very fortunate to go to good schools, Kendriya Vidyalayas across the country. And whenever I would spend my summer vacations in my village, I could see kids who are as talented, probably more talented, more hardworking, but falling off the cliff. They were not as fortunate in the lottery of birth that they could do well in life by the same amount of effort I was putting. So that taught me that you have to always be grateful towards what you have, rather than taking it as granted and thinking that everything that I have is something that I've earned from my hard work. So with that, that became some sort of foundation, and eventually my value system about how the lens with which I saw society. As Kartik said, I graduated from electrical engineering from NIT Surathkal, and that gave me a broad set of workspace in semiconductor engineering, working at Texas Instruments, Intel, and opportunity to work with companies across the world and teams across the world. So that gave me a sense of what innovation at a global scale, at an international scale is, that when you pursue something where, as a mission to be a world leader, you have to bring together the best and brightest minds across the world. And when you sit as a team, you have to respect the idea more than the person. So that became my first foundation as I started my career. But somewhere in this journey, I had become very passionate about to enter social sector, and that motivated me to think about what is the career track that I wanted to pursue. Uh, from electrical engineering to figuring out what social sector opportunities can be, for me, the higher education became the bridge, and that motivated me to first go to IIM Bangalore, then Kellogg and Harvard. And somewhere along the way, these three great institutions, I was able to meet people who were all pursuing their missions in life. Some people in corporates, others in other areas. Alongside, I was able to meet change makers from across the world. For example, when I was joining Kellogg in 2008, President Obama had just come on the horizon. The grammar of politics in the US had changed, with small voices of hope mattered. The social media mattered much more positively than probably it is today. And it is with those ideas I entered the Kennedy School at Harvard, and realized that maybe some of these ideas, together with this greater exposure, I can take it back to India and work in India in a state. Fortunately, Bihar was up for election in 2010. So I thought this is a great state to get started with, which is my home state. So I approached the Chief Minister of Bihar and the Deputy Chief Minister Sushil Modi ji, and they graciously agreed to let me build their campaign. This is 2010, when campaign management was not a defined field.
Right.
So we created something called Bihar Leadership Project. That was an opportunity to build the campaign on a development-focused platform for Bihar. And that was my entry point in some way in the field of governance and politics. So throughout this building of Bihar Leadership Project, the project was a pro bono exercise. So I realized that sometimes your best opportunities are going to come when you are so passionate about the opportunity that you don't want to look at whether it is going to pay you well or not. And I also realized in this entire journey that it is important for you to do stints that give you a portfolio of skills that you are confident about and a wide exposure. So when I today think about working for India, I have a wide exposure from different states to villages. When I think about entrepreneurship, I look at a wide canvas of ideas from things that will be applicable to a village to things that are applicable at an international scale, such as top computing powers, and things that are relevant from a point of view of public policy. Somewhere the combination of this became the foundation of my career thereon. I worked in Bihar for nearly 5 years, supported organizations such as London School of Economics on economics research, and as well as there was an opportunity that nudged me into politics, so became national spokesperson for JDU, advisor for Nitish Kumar ji, and as a result, it gave me a full spectrum of view from technology to management to public policy and research to politics. By the time it was 2015, I realized that just advisory role in politics can be very glorified. You have access to top sources of power. You can find yourself in beautiful pictures, but you are not really bringing about change at a large scale. And this is something that has been with me throughout, that when you are acquiring skills that are powerful, you have to be ambitious. You have to be ambitious, and if you are ambitious, your ambitions will not restrict you to what you want to do for yourself or your family. The best ambitions are what you want to do for society and the world in some way. So for me, the wide exposure of education and professional experience was building of that ambition, that there are things that you can do beyond your family, beyond yourself. With that idea that I need to do more, I decided to come back to Delhi and work on a startup which is called Good Ed Technologies, which was focused on an imagery that flashed from Bihar, which is how parents and relatives were climbing trees and buildings so that kids could cheat in class 10th examination or class 12th examination. This was 2015. This was a solvable problem. Now it is pretty much a solved problem. The idea at that time was build a network of good teachers who can teach in vernacular languages to high school students and offer it at free or low cost to as many students as possible. Now it is mainstream, but that was a time when the internet highway of India was not at this speed. Geo was not there, other platforms were not there, so many startups in edtech were not there. So it was a good experience building a company that again focused on a social mission. And in this journey from politics to again entrepreneurship, I realized that there is something which is a combination of these two. Politics in its best way is, in many things, it is about representation of people in society. It is about clash of interests, but at the core, it is about serving people on a collective agenda of something that will benefit the entire society. And entrepreneurship is basically looking at innovations and resources that can bring together to solve a problem. If you combine these two, then you have a public agenda and you have a mission to combine innovation and resourcefulness to solve something which will, just like the happiness collective, which will bring collective happiness. And for this generation, the youngsters who are there, I think that this is a very fortunate generation. If you have a public mission, if you want to do something for society, and you feel that this society, whether you define it as your city or your neighborhood or your village or your town or the entire country or any particular community in the country, right? There is so much to do with all the tools and technologies that are available as the collective social network that you build through Facebook, LinkedIn, and all the various platforms, that if you choose to just make your town better. There are more than 7,000 towns in India, I believe, by the census. And if you look at those 7,000 towns, maybe not 20% of them would have great public parks. If somebody says that my mission is to ensure that India's towns and villages have great public parks, right? It would require some amount of public entrepreneurship and some amount of grit to make it happen, right? That's an agenda that no one has solved. It's an agenda that can be solved. And if that happens, it brings collective happiness, it creates collective welfare. So for me, public entrepreneurship is defined as entrepreneurship that you pursue based on your best capabilities for a mission that is beyond your immediate rewards for family or self. So a long answer to Kartik, your question, but
it's a wonderful answer, Ghanshyam. Thank you for that, because it also helps us trace through your journey. You've given us so many insights. I love what you said about the early part of your experience, growing up in an Air Force family, and these two things that you learned, which is, I love your definition of nationalism. That nationalism is, what do I bring to the table? It's not my ideas about what other people think. It's like what Kennedy used to say, right? Ask what you can do for your country, not what does a country owe you, right? Combined with impeccable professionalism and the importance of quality education, whether that's in Air Force, whether that's in Kendriya Vidyalaya, whether that's in IIM, whether that's in Harvard. To me, these are all equivalent institutions. So someone who's fortunate to get that exposure, and global. It's a stupid buzzword, but it's so meaningful that you can look at India as an insider. I mean, you've lived in villages in multiple states and you've interacted with global experts. So now you can bring to bear to that on problems. So I think this is a really interesting way of looking at public entrepreneurship, rather than just the way I explained it, which is the overlapping of the Venn diagrams, which is obvious that you need government and private sector to work together. The question that people will have, and we'll cover this in the Q&A, is how do I find my nationalism? How do I find what I can bring to the table? And how do I collaborate? So when we talk about the specific examples, I would love to go into that. But before we do that, just for about 10 minutes, the second part of what we usually cover, which is we like to give our viewers a little bit of a personal flavor. You already given us a very nice story, but what we usually ask is, what were some obstacles along the way, or what were some challenges that you faced over your life that allowed you to come to this realization, and particularly with respect to this distinction between the political domain and the startup domain. This is not an easy transition to make. So could you share some additional thoughts on that? And then we can dive specifically into the current initiatives that PII is focusing on, and how does one actually make those collaborations happen. But anything you want to share about your personal story?
Sure, definitely. I think in general, the stories, when you take a trek of your own, you will find some resonance with some of the things that I would share here. For example, when you set out as a 17, 18-year-old school student, you set out that with a dream that this is my big ambition. Right now, you have a choice. You can share that dream with people, your friends, your family members, or you can not share that dream. What is quite likely, and it happened to me also. For me, the dream was always about doing something which is significant for the country, that transforms lives. I don't know how that dream came along, but that was my dream. And when you share it with people, the chances are that people will not believe it. The chances are that if you share it with your own family members, whether they will believe it or not, your parents will definitely appreciate it, that you want to do something good, but no one sees the bridge. You only have a dream. But that is an obstacle, that you are narrating a dream that people around you who know you very well, who think well of you, are not believing in. But when you walk along, I can give personal example, when you walk along the same track for 20, 25 years, right? And then you look back, the same people who did not believe you in the beginning start appreciating the determination with which you have worked, because they remember that you said that this is what you're going to do. So when you have a vision for yourself, my lesson from this is that share this with people who you trust. Even if they don't believe it, share it. Because at some point in time, with your determination and hard work, as you start walking that track, people will start appreciating it. They will turn into believers, and then they'll turn into a force for you. The second thing that would happen as you set on a track of your own with a lot of hard work, a lot of passion, is that not everything will fructify. Not everything will be a success, right? And then you will have to ask yourself a question, that when is the right time to let go? After you have done a lot of hard work and you are already on a mini summit of something that can easily be your comfort zone for life, is that a time to think about the original peak that you wanted to climb, or be happy about the peak that you just climbed, right? So for me, that was a moment to think about when I was working in Bihar with Nitish Kumarji. I was working very closely with him. Mm-hmm. And there was a time in 2015 that I realized that this whole advisory track, even though I was working with the chief minister, is not going to yield massive transformational results. There has to be something much more action filled that you own, rather than you are telling or suggesting the state that this is what you want to do, right? So for me, it was a very comfortable position that I had built after 5 years of hard work, while paying my student loan, while working nearly voluntarily free for the state for 5 years, right? From 2011 onwards. So I decided that it was time to let go. I decided that it was time to climb down and do something else that allows you to acquire a new set of capabilities and build something which will eventually combine. So many of you would have heard the speech, famous Steve Jobs speech about how dots connect, right? There could be moments in your life that the dots would connect, but you need to make those dots. If you are too happy and comfortable about the dot that you are sitting in right now, then you are not going to have those alternate points that eventually may connect. And connections will be fateful sometimes, and they will be sometimes your synthesis of how you combine various things that you've done. So second part is thinking about when do you let go of something that is not going in towards the mission that you wanted to go to. So staying on to your ambition, always with the same level of zeal, is important, right? But staying on the same track is not necessarily important. There could be reasons to change track. The third thing that I realized is that you have to assess the structure, the value system in the environment that you are working in. When I was graduating, I met a professor, and he asked me that what are you going to do in Bihar, because I was not among 10 students who are going to Bihar. Like most students were going to stay, they were going to do great jobs across the world, and I was returning to Bihar to work voluntarily. So I said, I'll make a list of issues and try to see how I can solve those issues, right? And he said that he's an organizer, famous professor. So he said that that's the wrong way of doing it. The right way of doing it is understand who are the people you are going to work with and see what is important to them. And that is how you start building your team, your tribe. And once you are able to work on what is important to them, then you are able to find ways by which they may value what is important to you, and you build that platform. So understanding the value system of the place that you're working is extremely important. It is important in politics, especially because everybody thinks that in politics, people are there to make a quick buck. People are insincere. People are insecure, right? You cannot come to a stage and then develop stage fright based on what else is happening around you. You have to come to the stage with your confidence that this is the system the way it is. I understand it, but I need to shape it the way I want to. That's the reason I'm here. I'm not here to take the stereotypes that people put on it. I'm here to redefine those stereotypes. So that's the third thing that I learned. Whenever you enter a phase, don't buckle down on the stereotypes that people put. You will have an opportunity to redefine those stereotypes. And finally, I think overall, with Parliamentarians with Innovators, PI India, what I have also realized, this is more COVID realization, that there will be occasions in the life of a nation and now world that you have to put together your best effort and best ambitions together to do something quickly. And one opportunity that you would have in doing that is if you have been respectful to people, if you have built trust through your work, then you will be somebody who would be a force who can combine, who can bring people together. When we built Parliamentarians with Innovators for India, this was April last year, right? This became the first platform in the country, and not many countries across the world have it, which is truly multi-party platform on a apolitical mission.
Exactly.
This is the first platform which has members of parliament from BJP, from Congress, from Shiv Sena, from BJD, across party lines.
That too in a highly politicized environment, and that too in our country, which is so polarized. So that was one of the most incredible things.
Yes. And for me, I felt very grateful because I've been on television. Those of you who have seen me, I've been on television as a vocal critic of this government. Yet to be able to seek that respect and secure that respect with members of parliament from different party lines was a moment of gratitude for me. So I think your work eventually should have a combining effect. If your work has limited you into a silo, then chances are that your public service mission may become incomplete, because when time comes, when you seek people to combine together, you may not be able to. So those are some of the things that I wanted to share.
No, thank you for that, Ghanshyam. That was so powerful, And this last point, especially the distinction between policy versus politics. Many young people simply don't understand that or get that. That, it's the same with me, that I work in impact investing. So one has to work with the government for what's called policy, which is the benefit of your people, right? Which is sectoral. It could be education, it could be healthcare, it could be agriculture. It doesn't matter what government is in power. If you care for your people, you have to do that work, which is distinct from politics, which is you could still have a difference of view with that government of the day on other ideological questions. And people just simply don't understand that. They say, because I'm against this government, anything that the government does is bad, without realizing that 80% of development work is government work. So you can't think like that, right? So I think that's a very important point, and your relationships point. That even in entrepreneurship, we say that someone has to have ambition and passion over the long term. So serial entrepreneurship is not bad if it's in the same sector, that someone knows that I'm really passionate about education or I'm really passionate about healthcare. So I will spend the next 10 to 20 years of my life on that subject. Now, within that, the different startups or the different organizations may change every 2 to 3 years, but you're building towards something, you know? So I think it's wonderful to see this. So this is excellent, Ghanshyam. I think we've set the context really nicely. We've got about another half an hour, and we do have a select viewers with us who have been carefully curated, you know, as young folks who have particular questions to ask specifically about this overlapping domain. And already on the YouTube channel, we're getting a bunch of questions. But before we do that, let's cover part 3, which is not just what are you doing today, but because what you're doing today directly relates to COVID response. So let me ask the question slightly differently. I myself can summarize the various initiatives. And in fact, let me quickly do that just to save you the time, right? So Ghanshyam, right now, what does PII do? Just so people understand what this is. So one, Digital Bharti. What is Digital Bharti? It's an initiative to provide scholarships, educational technology support to COVID orphans, a large industry initiative, right? Second is, let's say, Immunize, which is helping people with immunizations, making that available in vernacular languages. Insta Doctor, right, which is doubt response for medical issues, you know, and this is all for, you know, a mass market for the underprivileged segments, and specifically a focus on youth, women and children. Box hospitals, this notion of a hospital in a box, in a truck, which can be used in rural areas. Prayer.org, right, a digital property to share remembrances of all the people who have suffered. The mental health initiative, which is really talking about how do we help our frontline health workers. We're all sitting at home relaxing and having our coffee and our chai. These guys are every single day dealing with bereavement. You can't even imagine the mental pressure they would be under. So mental health for frontline workers. And the most interesting one, jobs exchange, which is so many people in rural India are looking for jobs and they're suffering. Women in our country particularly struggle to get jobs. We have the lowest labor force participation rate in the world of women. It's absurd, even lower than Saudi Arabia, and even lower amongst rural women. So imagine a rural woman who wants to get a job. She can't find one, or she won't be treated well. So Ghanshyam has an initiative for that, which is how do you source thousands of jobs for people in rural areas. So this is just to give people a flavor of the sheer range of this. And these are not micro initiatives. Each of these is anchored by Google or by some huge startup or by some well-known investors, right? And they're all collaboratives. That these are, you know, that each of them has someone like me, someone like from government, someone else, all coming together for specific initiatives. So, you know, to co-create this. So since we have such a large scope to cover, I want to ask you 2 questions, Ghanshyam, which is, what do you think currently, given what India is facing in COVID and the sheer range of issues that are out there, right? Because we've now gone from like pure crisis response, ventilators, oxygen, and so on and so forth, to now a little bit more of a recovery mode, where the focus is on things like jobs, on emotional and mental health. So, but that's a lot of theory, right? Since you work so closely on this, can you help frame for us what is the challenge that India is facing over the next year, but not at a macro level, in a way that relates to how different people can get involved? So if I'm a young person, and I'm like, I want to do something interesting with my life, right? What are the 5 or 6 areas that you think will be most critical for India? If you can start with that. And I, of course, am most interested in the mental health piece. So then we can deep dive in that.
Sure. First and foremost, I think something that should be told at a national stage by maybe the Prime Minister or some leader, especially in the government, is that these are, people understand it, but it has to be retold that these are absolutely warlike times. It means that we as a country has faced a disaster, a massive disaster. Lives have been destroyed, livelihoods have been destroyed. And as a result, the nation has to be rebuilt. And this is, a nation has to be rebuilt in the face of how other nations are rebuilding themselves, many of them who are much more advanced. And we were ambitious as a country. We walked into the powerful nation club of the world, saying that we want to lead the world in the 21st century. So from that standpoint, while those countries have greater resources, lesser population, we have lesser resources, greater population. So while we may slip, those countries are pacing forward very, very quickly. So when a nation has to be rebuilt, somebody has to tell every citizen in the country that it is not just a government's responsibility to rebuild the nation. It is every citizen's responsibility to rebuild the nation. That anchor has to be very, very clearly set for every one of us, our families. Second, I think once that overarching anchor is set, then every one of us has to have to look at what does this rebuilding the nation would mean. What impact does my family or my career has with respect to COVID? Second, that if I look beyond that, what is one community, one aspect of this nation that I feel very attached to? That is my stake in the nation in some way, right? And what is it that I can bring to that community? As I said, that the nationalism part is about what you bring to the table. That is not necessarily bringing to the table of the nation as a whole. It could be bringing to the table of that community, that township, that town, or the village that you come from, you live, right? So what can I bring to that community that can sustain a little bit as more lives are being built? I think the fact that with technology today, better quality of education can be given to more children than ever before means that some of these rebuilding has better tools available if people make it a mass movement, that we want to ensure that in our country every child is educated. They are educated either because the government has put in effort, or there are collectives, citizens collectives, that are putting in efforts, just like citizen collectives came together to support those who were immediately impacted by COVID. So that's the second part, that think about what is one thing that you can support on a sustained basis without taking undue pressure of it. You are not moving the mountain. You are just taking off one pebble of the mountain. And if enough people take enough pebbles out of the mountain will be movable. That's the second part that I want to say. The third thing that I want to say is that the political leadership in this country for long has had it easy, in the sense that as India got liberalized, a lot of people with good capabilities, good education entered the private sector, and they did very well for themselves. As a result, we have a flourishing private sector whose capabilities, whose professionalism, whose competence is known across the world. But what it also meant that it took away very talented people who would have otherwise joined the social sector, the government sector, many other sectors. So because politics and governance doesn't have a vacuum at any time, others join. It is important that these fields have people with professional skills. As we see our nation struggle in this particular crisis, it is easy for every one of us to see that how the lack of deep professional training and skills among those who are in the leadership in the country, both politics and bureaucracy, is affecting the nation. I hope and pray that this is a moment that we would look back and say that this is a moment that enabled more professionals who are at a mid-level success in their career, or who have achieved success, more professionals to enter politics and think about politics as a way towards their ultimate ambition to do something big for the society.
Exactly.
This is that moment. The fourth thing I think the COVID would bring is the idea of collectives rather than the idea of too much individualism. There was a time in the country that everyone who did well would live in a gated community, and would by and large secure their life in this ocean by creating one little island for themselves. But you realize that when pandemic happens, when a war happens, when a flood happens, there's no one single person that goes down. Just about anybody can go down. So this is a moment when many would realize that individually secure is nothing in a developing country. It is collectively secure that matters in a developing country, which means that people have to put their mind behind everything that they think might be broken, but has not been their problem. If the healthcare system is broken, right, and it's not been their problem, someday that the healthcare system will strike people. It does strike, by the way. If somebody finds himself or herself in an accident on a road, and the nearby public hospital, which has very dedicated staff otherwise, right, but if it doesn't have facilities, if it doesn't have amenities, right, that person would may lose his life or her life. So things that are broken in this country are not invisible. They are known. It's just that not enough professional minds are being put on those things. So I hope that citizens collectives are formed. that start taking up agenda. What we need for a while, Kartik and people like me saw Sachin Tendulkar as one sports hero who could advertise for any sport. I don't think that is the model that India needs. What India needs is thousands of heroes for thousands of missions. The idea of one hero for every mission is not an idea that can move our country. We are a diverse country. And if that diversity has to kick in, it means that every panchayat has its heroes who are doing well in panchayat on the governance model. Every constituency of an MLA has some people who are setting new benchmarks of governance. And because knowledge is so transferable and easily transferable these days, right, it is quite possible for people to take one idea and apply it in their own little pocket, little ecosystem that they work in. Yeah. So I would say these are the four things that if we as a nation take care of, other things will follow. The ideas will happen because we are a country where people are knowledge seekers. People are ready to sacrifice their meal so that their kids could study better. And we are a country philosophically which has always believed, if you look at our own value system of the 5,000 year civilization we are, merit was never the top value for our civilizational history. The top value in our civilizational history was probably sacrifice, then somewhere courage, right? Merit came somewhere way down. You would not know any god in our mythology who was just praised because he was very meritorious, that he could count numbers very quickly or he could speak Sanskrit very well, right? It's just the phenomenon of the market forces right now. So I think philosophically we are a country which is more attuned to using knowledge for common good and doing collective things. I hope that the pandemic reignites that value which is innate to us as a culture in every citizen.
I love how you're framing these points, Ghanshyam. This is so useful, and I'm taking notes here. And we're going to put this out, and a lot of young people are going to benefit from this, because I take away 2 points from what you just said. Right, the larger point of India being a consensual decision-making culture is well known. Those of us who are political scientists know that, right? In fact, just ironically, I was reading about the Indian Constitution recently, and a lot of authors have talked about that we imported the best of British parliamentary democracy, but on the key issues, whether it's federalism versus unitary government, whether it's due diligence and acquisition of property and versus private rights, or whether it's a linguistic issue, whether it's Panchayat Raj versus a song center. We've always found that balance, and everyone talks about that, right? So we know that. But what needs to be applied from that and what's missing is 2 things. One is the first thing you said, which is a war-like scenario. I want to say to all the young people listening in, the reason that they're so frustrated is why? In essence, it's because they're looking at people like us and they're saying, we went through our youth, our 20s in peace times, when the economy was growing and we could be outside and interact with our friends. They're going to go through their 20s in wartime. So that's the orientation you need to have, right? And the last point you mentioned about hero worship, a subtle but very critical point, that it's not that hero worship itself is bad, but we need to redefine who our heroes are and decentralize them. Why does Sachin Tendulkar have to be a hero for every single sport? Why can't we have one for chess, one for badminton, one for X sport, Y sport, Z sport? Why can't we look at 20, 30 panchayat leaders? We have this tendency of wanting to gravitate, and that's not good for us as a large country, to have this very simplistic notions of good and bad. And that also holds us back. So I think this has been an absolutely stupendous conceptual talk. And it's okay that we've not gone into the specific examples. We can always do that in subsequent sessions. But I do want to give a chance to some of the people who especially came here to talk to us on this. I don't know if Malika is on. Malika, are you there? Hi. Or can you hear us, Malika? Okay, maybe while we wait for her, I think Garima also had a question. Garima, you want to ask your question on mental health?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Kartik and Ghanshyam. This was such an illuminating conversation. I think for someone, myself, who's going through my 20s in this time and occasionally feels a little bit disheartened about the state of the country, this was really useful to hear. Mr. Tiwari, my question is on the state of mental health in this country. Something that I am struggling with trying to recognize now is how do you identify the mental health needs of young people at different socioeconomic levels and scales? Like, I know what my experience is, what the experience of the people around me is. But as a collective who is trying to build mental health resources, what kind of interventions can we make use of? What are some of the best practices on mental health in public intervention that your work is bringing, for instance?
I think there are some aspects of mental health that I understand. I have not done deep work in mental health yet, but one essential aspect of mental health is uh, the notion of trust in a society. That when I am in a mentally vulnerable situation, who am I going to trust? Is it a friend? Is it my family members? And that is when the overall social value system gets exposed. That do I have a good conversational? Do I have a happy family where I can talk? Right. And what is it that is securing that happy family? A number of mental health issues emerge from the fact that I'm not able to have that conversation in the family itself, right, be it with parents or with others. That's one. Second is that so this is one aspect of trust. The second is the for the youth, the whole social media setup, right? I think over there is social media environment creating a natural place for me to find trust, or is it creating undue pressure on me to behave in a certain manner, right? And what is the fallback option if I'm slipping? What is my fallback option, right? I don't think what the right answer there is, but I think there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity for people who build these such as the Happiness Collective platforms, where people can speak, can share, can understand that what is collectively going on. Sometimes I am right, but collectively I am in a situation where the situation itself is toxic, and that is affecting my mental health, right? Social media platforms can easily be that situation. So that is another thing I would say, that this undue pressure. Third is uh, the definition of success is not clear as much anymore. Here are the reasons why it is not clear. When I was in school, say 20 years back, at that time everything that I did was local. If I win a competition, it's local. It's not that I win a competition and the second moment I realize that, oh, there is a 12-year-old child who has done the same thing at a double the speed, and now my accomplishment has diminished, right? We are in a world where everything has a global reference point, and as a result my accomplishment can easily be diminished, right? So success, definition of success has to be more internalized than externalized now. And I think that is something that has to be told by successful people across the country. The idea of success as being a person who's secure from within, who has the ability to acquire proficiency and apply it to solve problems for self, for society, on a continuous basis, right? I think that is a fairly simple idea of success. And in the process, build trusted relationships, good friendships. I think this is a more internalized idea of success to me, right? Rather than saying that, what is the designation that I have, what is the bank balance that I have. Those things are important, right? But if they create a pressure, and that pressure says that now I'm 30 and I have to match that designation, I have now 5-year runway to go there. I think somebody has to study that what is the new models of success, what is the mental pressure that they are creating. And finally, I think any society eventually has to be measured by how the society collectively treats its most vulnerable. I think where we fail as a country is that we just bypass, ignore, let go of the vulnerable as if they don't matter, right? And I think that is where we need better systems, where people are ready to come forward and say that, I have a family member who's vulnerable, I have a situation who's vulnerable. I have not come across enough trusted platforms. There was a time then religion was that trusted platform, then it got exploited. So I don't see enough trusted platforms that can offer that. In contrast to cities, villages can have that trusted collective because it's a community where everybody knows everybody from their past. So the situation of mental health is different, I would say, in a city than in a village. In a village, you can it's more difficult to feel lonely in a village, right? It's more easy to feel the complex of the village dynamics, but not loneliness in the same way that you can feel in a city. The mental health issues that emerge from village is primarily emerging from the inferiority complex that has built around caste, around the social inequalities that exist, and that has to be solved for. So I think the dimensions of mental health are also dependent on which society we are looking at. So these are some of the thoughts I have. I think these are not comprehensive, and they are not even structured. These are just spontaneous that I thought of right now.
But they're very powerful thoughts, Ghanshyam. I mean, you're absolutely right, and we're also not specialists in mental health, but we're focusing on, see, it's a taboo subject, and it's a very misunderstood subject because people don't even know what is mental health. It has so many segments. And as you said, the key issue is lack of trust, which in business terms means lack of awareness of quality, the lemons problem, that you don't know who's good and who's bad. So you can't segment the market and you can't match. So how are you ever going to find your mental health help that you need? And the third problem is discovery. So it's a completely fragmented and broken market in many senses. And only one way it can come out of that is if there's general awareness, which is now starting to happen. Because for the first time ever, I think you only mentioned this, that so many people are suffering at the same time. So everyone is facing bereavement, loss, anger. Usually one person is suffering, but 10 other people are there to help them. Here, everyone is suffering at the same time. And there's all different levels of suffering. A rich person at home is lonely because they can't fly to another city. A middle-class person is upset because they've lost their job. A poor person is upset because they don't have a place to live. So the suffering is manifold, and it really takes the importance of mental health into a new dimension. Just quickly moving on, we have a bunch of questions on youth and politics. Kangshi, are you there? Kangshi Agarwal is there with us. Hi, Kangshi. And she's actually the founder of Netri. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, Ghanshyam. It's an incubator for politics, a wonderful organization. And she has a question on youth and politics. How do you build and catalyze leadership? Kangshi, you want to share your thoughts?
It's always a pleasure to hear you speak with your brilliant elocution and also the articulation. So we'll have to get on a one-on-one again. But here's my question for the benefit of this platform. Thank you, Kartik, for curating this in the first place. But so here's this irony, right? We are in this economic crisis, and how do you really build and catapult leadership when people are barely in a position to support themselves? And then mental health, we were just talking about mental health, which is like a double whammy. So the underprivileged, to the middle class, to the highly privileged, how do you really build that right set of psychographic and demographic that will take the nation forward when you're in the deeps of an economic crisis? So this is the time when we need leadership most, but then how do you also build it? And because of your experience in so many, you are at the, you work at the intersection of so many fields, perhaps you'll be best suited to answer this.
I think when a big ship is sinking, right? You basically get to see the courage of people. You get to see the people who have the ability to put others first, and we are seeing that. I think, for example, the healthcare workers across the country, they have families, they have put others first. Even the frontline workers, people in police, there's so many people across the society that are showing unprecedented courage to be there and to do their work. As a country, it is important that we recognize that leadership. Sometimes we get used to the leadership that media has defined and the leadership that appears glorified. I think we don't see leadership in somebody who's just ensuring that a hospital is running, for example, right, in these times. Or we don't see leadership in somebody who's ensuring that the essential supplies are working. So I think that is one thing. The definition of leadership has to be much more tangible in the country rather than rhetorical. Second, alongside, I think that for us to get out of this situation, as I said earlier also, that we have to think about what is it that we can collectively do. We are not going to, if the economic crisis continues, we are not looking at a situation where for a government school, everybody will be able to, any state government will be able to offer a laptop to every child, right? If a laptop to every child is not possible because of budget constraints for a state government, then what is the alternative that is possible that still uses digital education opportunities and collectively teaches? That alternative is to be able to teach teachers in a different way, train teachers in a different way, that they may be able to work with one projector for an entire class whenever the school reopens. So we have to think that how can technology enable a sharing economy which is much more low cost than what a rich country may be able to do. And again, over there, the professional skills and what I defined as public entrepreneurship will come into force. The public health models that are emerging all the way from how people are securing health through telemedicine and other systems, other plug and play systems, box hospitals in our case, right? I think those systems are going to be useful. A good government at a state level, not necessarily at a national level, but even at a national level, any good government right now has to look at the last 1 year and see that who are the citizens or citizens collectives or organizations who have done something which is good, which is scalable and benefits the entire society. They don't have to invent a lot of things. There are enough examples that are there that could be replicated. So I think uh, I would say that at this point in time, leadership is about looking within about things that are working and exemplifying them, amplifying them, and scaling them. And at the same time, as I said, communicating that these are not ordinary times. Don't measure these times. Don't measure progress of your life um, in the ordinary way that you've been measuring all the time, right? So these are some of the thoughts that I have on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Ever inspiring and very, very fruitful. Thank you.
Thanks, Kangshi. Thanks, Ghanshyam, for that. That was, very insightful. And you reiterated the point about the having the right heroes. And we've got this video at Happiness Collective. We talk about it, the secret superheroes, and it's not just the frontline workers, but even folks like the maids, the helpers, the policemen, even people who work in the funeral parlors. So we're, as you said, I love how you put it. We're realizing who the really courageous people are. Only when a ship sinks, you realize that, versus the people who just talk a lot. Garima, I think we're having an issue with the video. If you can just spotlight Ghanshyam. I think it's stuck on Kangshi. But meanwhile, I think we'll move to our next question, which is coming from Malika, who also is a young person who works in the policy and political domain in Uttarakhand. Malika, you want to ask your question to Ghanshyam?
Yeah. Hi, good evening, Mr. Tiwari. Thank you so much for your insights. I really love the talk. But I want to know your opinion, like what are your thoughts on how can we get this global experience of policy making to India? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that I don't fully understand the global experience of policymaking. What I do understand is two things. One is that building very strong institutions in the country that use data and make very commonsensical policy decisions. The good thing about all the technology gadgets that are there is there's so much data available that you can really see that are we acting in an effective and optimum manner, as especially as a country that requires a lot of resources and has little of them, right? Or are we not? I think the global paradigms, whatever they are defined, eventually you have to understand politics is at the core of policy making that emerges, right? And politics is a clash of interests, right? And that is where the question then comes is that which are the interests that are represented and which interests are dominating. The reason politics has to be representative is because if a certain community is not represented, then its interest is not represented. And if its interest is not represented, somebody else someone else's interest will supersede, which means that they will have more resources, they will dictate terms. This happens at an international level also. Why do rich countries want 5 times more vaccines as their number of people in their population? It is some of these things that are also playing a role. So I think at this point in time, the word global itself is fairly getting redesigned and re-architected depending on who are the leaders at the top. When Donald Trump was US president, it was articulated in a different way. When with President Biden, it's a different scenario now. So I would not think too much about that. I would say I'll turn the question in the other side, and for someone who's young, who's looking at politics and policy making, I think the idea of going across the world, if you can, and studying public policy or any field that has a public bearing, public health, for example, right, is a powerful idea, because then some of these institutions across the world have done a good job, universities, of securing that institution as an entity that attracts best talent and is able to give a strong exposure on diverse set of topics and subjects to people. And that exposure lives with you when you return to India. You want those many ideas to be implemented, and that becomes a part of your lifelong mission. So I think that I will look at global policy making inside out, wherein young people who are interested in public policy and other domains at an early age are go into any country. I'm not saying just US, UK, just any country which has a good institution, get exposed, and then see if some of that knowledge and idea set can be brought to India, but applied in the way you want to apply, not necessarily applied in a cookie cutter manner that say somebody else from outside is advising. I think we as a country have a lot to do by ourselves. We value advice, but there's a lot that we can do by ourselves.
Yeah. I just wanted to add a small rejoinder to this. Ghanshyam, the way I interpreted this question also is between urban and rural, and your experience as someone who's had deep experience in the heartland of India, but who has that perfect global experience. There are not that many people who are genuinely interested in policy. Most people these days want to become engineers or business people and make money, or they want to go completely in the creative sort of domain. Policy is very hard. And those who are in policy will typically want to go for either the IAS exam or something, like understood. Very few people have the appetite to do this sort of entrepreneurial work it's required to work on the ground. And therefore, what I often find is a very good hook for these kind of folks is what I call connection. Saying if you're interested, like for Malika, I say, look, if you're interested in doing education in Uttarakhand, and there's some good examples in Finland or what have you, particularly on these issues, teacher training. There's a frustration in India that all our teacher training, our bureaucracy, our education system, they're just not thinking correctly, at all levels. So if they're, for young people, sometimes they get those ideas from outside, and then they think in a very clear way that how do I improve teacher training? If it can happen in Europe, why can't it happen here? Some people would say that's too naive and idealistic. I say, no, absolutely not. Because only the naive people will change the world. Because you may fall short, but you'll still fall further ahead than the cynical people. And our country has way too much cynicism. So I think that's critical, right? And imagine bringing people from the city who are well off, who have a lot of global exposure, to go and spend some time in, let's say, rural Uttarakhand in government schools, and they get an internship certificate or something. So just imagine the lessons that are happening. They were taking Kashmiris and taking them into the rest of India. So I think this is a principle that we need to emphasize.
Yes, and Malika's question, I think the global policy making ideas can come, but they will not come because somebody from there is coming or a text from there is coming. It will come when, say, Malika, you got exposed to those ideas, but it is your public entrepreneurship that you want them to be implemented in exactly. Uttarakhand, right? So they will happen because you are doing it. They will not happen by themselves. And when you are doing it, it will not just be a cut and paste. It will be something from there, something from here, and a better version will emerge.
Exactly. And last question, we have
Thank
Amit.
you, Mr. Tiwari.
Thanks, Malika, for your question. And last question is we have Amit Mishra. Amit is someone who's, again, a well-known person in the startup and incubation space. Amit, you want to ask Ghanshyam your question? Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kartik and Ghanshyam. It's always a pleasure, listening to you. So, I think my question will probably cover everything which we have discussed till now. There is a sense of a disconnect, while because people are sitting in their own silos, and there is a sense of unhappiness and I think the biggest challenge I see that there is a fear, there is anger and everything. But what historically what we have seen, that everybody wants to build their own brand, right? So I'm talking about individuals who want to build their own companies just to show that I am better than everybody else. So there is this competition which is always there among us, right? And I don't want to compare us with any other country, because we're talking about India. How do we create? You did a fantastic job with PII. You brought people from all diaspora, from all parties to do something together. But we want to change, right? And we definitely need a change right now. How do we ensure that all these silo leaders, are able to come together and say that, mujhe brand nahi chahiye. I don't need a brand. I actually want action to happen. I actually want, things to change, which are not changing right now, right? So if you can probably, share some things there.
Sure. Because this is the last question, I'll combine it with something that I also wanted to say, because there are a lot of young people who think about how do they want to join politics or how do they want to work in public life, and the two are related. So I'll start from this part that, for the young people who are thinking about public life and politics, right? There's one thing that I want to share, which is probably the biggest myth in politics. of how somebody who's not part of it will see it. And this is becoming bigger by the day. That the best way to join politics is to go and join a political party. I think the best way to join politics is to first think about a public mission, a political mission, not a public mission, which is something that you want to do for the society, right? And that you want to carry with yourself for a long time. As you acquire more capabilities, more resources, the more you acquire, the more you want to do it, right? So that becomes your public mission. That public mission will give you an opportunity to build your own identity as an individual who's doing something beyond oneself. Now, in the world of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, right? The, every little thing that one does one can advertise that. But eventually, as one does that, you will realize that at least once you are working in public sphere, people will start noticing a pattern. If the work that you do is going to be bigger than the amount of branding that you are doing for yourself or narrating it, people will appreciate it. But over a period of time, if you are doing too much branding, too much branding of what you are doing, but the work is much little compared to that, then people will notice that because it's the same audience that you are communicating to, right? And there's a certain level of cynicism that is building up about this whole idea of personal branding. So I think the idea of personal branding needs to be, in my opinion, work first. Your work should speak reasonably well, and then you should have the communication skills to articulate it. Once that happens, then you create these linkages, which is what to Amit's question, who's a very good friend. You create those linkages by which you can connect with various people. If you have done something credible in one sphere, then someone else who's done something credible in another sphere is more likely to connect with you, provided the two of you can think that together you can combine forces and do something which is powerful. For example, in the current PII opportunities, we looked at startups who have done something very credible with a technology solution in one sphere, and we said that, look, if we bring this kind of team to you, right, we bring a strong public health team to you, right, would you be able to offer your technology pro bono to apply the same technology in public health, right? So that is something where things start combining, right? And as you build platforms like this, it's important to communicate that these are not branding platforms. These are platforms to do action, and once the platform is defined by its action, then hopefully there will be bigger forums that will be created where one can also speak about one's vision. So I think that is another aspect that is essential to keep in mind. And finally, as those of you who would eventually enter politics and public life in general, there is, the moment you start putting your focus on how people are going to see you, your work, right, you are in a very open space where you can take the steering is in your control. You can move in any direction as you want. So that is where the initial thing that I said about growing up in Air Force bases and understanding what the foundations of my value system are, right? I think what I found very useful is that how do you see what are the foundations of your value system? What makes you secure as a person, right? What makes you secure as a person is not fall on your own benchmarks. If you are every day falling on your own benchmarks, you think that this is what you want to, this is what your value system is. You are not going to be part of anything which involves bribe, then that's your value system, right? And the more you get tested on that ideal, the more it will become your principle. And then you don't want to be in a situation where every day you get up and you realize that you're part of a bribe nexus, right? So the same holds true with how you deal with people from other community. If you have always held it dearly that you value the harmony of the country, you feel the same joy of meeting another person, whether it is that person is a person from Tamil Nadu or Uttar Pradesh, or the person is Hindu or Christian or Sikh or Muslim, their identity doesn't come into the way of appreciating the joy that appreciating that person or the joy that you have in meeting that person. And that is innate to your value system. So when you are faced with a politics which is counter to it, are you going to become part of that politics because that can be personally beneficial to you? Now those are the questions that you may encounter, and again, those are questions that will test you on your value system. Remember that if you are in public life and if you are operating in a way which is counter to your value system, it will be very, very stressful. Also in public life, with so many cameras all around, you can only be one person. You cannot, gone are the days where you are a person in private and a person in public life. You have to figure out your most natural skin, wear it all the time, so that you are not worried about getting caught off guard or saying one thing to one set of people and saying another thing to so I use the opportunity to combine these points alongside what Amit had asked. What Amit had asked is simple. When you build, from my perspective, build a platform, communicate the core focus of the platform, bring together people with a very clear communication of mission of the platform, and suspend the branding activity till you have concrete things to present to people. And somewhere in doing so, your personal brand is important. How people see you is important, and how people see you is when you are in public life. And in that sphere of public life, how people see you, those are the times that you are deciding that how do you want people to see you, how do you expect people to see you, and that is where your value system comes into play. That how are you acting in the public sphere, and how are you building your personal brand. So in some way, these are all related. Maybe I complicated it by adding too many things in the entire setup, but the summary of all this is, which is applies to everything, right? Keep it simple. Understand the person you are, understand your goals, ensure that your goals are beyond your family and self, and that is where the nation comes in. Ensure that there's a consistency in how you approach those goals. Build your proficiency, and then think about building a personal brand.
Great. Thank you so much for that question, Amit, and thank you incredibly, Ghanshyam. I mean, I really must say this. This was one of the best discussions that I've had, and it's such a wonderful opportunity to spend Sunday evening reflecting on these very, very important topics. And I just wanted to say a few quick points in closing. One, thank you, and I think what you just said, you are actually the living embodiment of that, because it's very, very hard for people to do that. Many people want to be involved in public policy and governance. They don't know how to do it. Many people want to be involved in entrepreneurship and creating scalable solutions, but they struggle with it. All of these aspects that you mentioned, many people struggle with the clarity on their values. But in addition to the values, you also need the experience, the professionalism, the dedication, the intelligence to do it. So, and these are not easy things to do, because our country faces so many problems. We know the legacy issues, particularly with governance. But it's not, we shouldn't just single out the government. There's legacy issues with everything. There's legacy issues with business also, and with civil society. So I think we've covered a very nice framework on these complex issues of what is change, what does it take to be a change maker, how does one think about the overlapping social science silos of politics, economics, sociology, and all within a context of what's happening currently in COVID. We did not go into specifically the various initiatives, but that's okay. And that's my second point. I wanted to wish you the very best for that, because I know that these are all things which are happening live, and all of us are very excited to see some of those things come to fruition. So all the best with that. And I wanted to just conclude with one line, which is something which you repeatedly emphasized, which is at the beginning also. And rather than giving credit to John F. Kennedy to it, I want to actually, talk about my dad, Nitin Desai. And when I was a small child, he told me this line. And you know what he said? Because as young people, we often struggle to figure out, should I work in the private sector where I'll get a heavy salary? Or should I work in the public sector where I'll so-called help my country, but I'll get paid less? Very simple trade-off. Should we earn money and do anti-social work? Or should we do social work and not earn money? Why can't it be both, right? But that's obvious. So he said this. He says, look, there's nothing wrong in taking care of yourself. Be ambitious and do good for yourself in life. Point number one. But whenever doing that, whenever you choose between different options, after you've taken care of yourself, always choose that option on the basis of which one will have the maximum benefit for your country people, is the word that he used. But you could replace that with fellow humans, whatever you want to call it, right? And that's basically what you're saying, that be highly capable, right? And find yourself, your values, your skill set, your ikigai, some people call it if you want to use jargon, but find out what really motivates you. And then apply that to help as many people as possible. And that's as clear-cutting a guidance as we can have it. So thank you, Ghanshyam. This was really a pleasure. I'd like to just quickly hand it back to Garima for a formal close, but really appreciate having you here and hope we can do more of these going forward.
Thank you so much, Kartik.
Garima,
Definitely.
Over to you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Tiwari, thank you so much for joining us. I think as a young person myself, really bringing it back to resilience and grit, but also our value systems is really, really helpful. Thank you so much, Kartik, for hosting this conversation. For both of you, really, to bring the wealth of your experience that you do. And thank you to our audience for joining us tonight on The Happiness Show for Candid Conversations with Changemakers. We hope you join us again in our future editions of The Happiness Show as we continue to build empathy, gratitude, and kindness in times of these crises. Thank you so much, everyone. Good night.